All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April the 4th, 2023 Conroe ISD Board of Trustees Board Workshop. Appreciate everyone's attendance tonight and those watching online. Item 1, citizens participation. In accordance with Board Policy BD, those registered may address the board only on items posted on this agenda. Ms. Godfrey, do we have anyone that has signed up?
We do not.
Okay. So we will move on to item 2. And if I could, I'll just give just a quick little update to you all. First of all, thank you for those of you that were able to make it to our job fair this weekend. Certainly appreciated seeing you all there. And we ended up with 1,134 registrants, and we had 800 actually show up and be in attendance, which is a good, strong number, especially when you compare that to some places that we've seen in our area. So that's a good, strong number. We're proud of that. And thanks to your adjustment to policy and allowing us to be a little more quick in our action, we actually signed 25 letters of commitment that day. And I know that we had principals, lined up. They're going to be working all week through interviews, and as I think I shared with a couple of y'all, the real veteran principals did a lot of interviewing last Thursday and Friday and hired people and told them don't go to the job fair. So that accounts for some of those that didn't show up because they tried to get them early, which is a good move, really. But it was a great event. Thank you to our Human Resources Department for their work in making that happen. And today, in addition to being a great day because we have a board workshop, is also another special day, as we say, happy birthday to our friend Carrie Galatis today. Oh. Absolutely. Yes. But we've thrown this party for you, and here we are. So
you shouldn't have.
Yeah, there we are.
She said.
No, really, you shouldn't have. She said, really. All right. So tonight we do have 2 agenda items. We're going to go through our preliminary 2023-2024 budget overview, and then we'll get a quick update on our bond planning committee and the work that they are doing so well. But as we transition here to Darren and Karen, it's just kind of a reminder that we're in a legislative year. There's a lot of unknowns. There are things we know, there are things that we don't know, but we've really tried to focus on taking care of our people, and by doing that means making sure that we've provided resources and the help that people need to do their jobs. And so I think we'll see that demonstrated here tonight, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Rice and Ms. Garza.
Mr. Rice, before you begin, real quick, how many positions do we have open?
Currently open? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Paula is in here or not. Current vacancies? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
You're going to look.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Okay.
It'll probably take
Why
some
don't you just stump them right off?
Yeah.
I thought you would have a number, sorry.
No. Well.
But my point was that we've a long way to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
What I would anticipate is by the time we get to the end of the summer, we will probably hire over 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's okay.
So
Thank
it's
you.
there's a long way to go.
We still have
Thank you.
vacancies after that.
Yes,
And,
and that's part of even some of what Mr. Rice will present today, where we may have an allocation, doesn't guarantee that we're going to be able to fill it.
So we have a long way to go there. And just to share with the other board members, when I was at the job fair, I asked the principals also, what kind of difference did this change with hiring make for you at this job fair? And they said, wow, it made such a difference to be able to act more timely and quickly, because it is such a war for talent right now. Mm-hmm. So just putting those 2 things together, it is good that we did what we needed to do there. Yeah.
No, it was huge, and that's what we have 594 jobs posted at the moment looking into next year, but that, one school might post a first grade opening, they could have 2 openings, but they'll post it once. But as I think I shared with a few of y'all there at the job fair, what a huge difference it makes. And principal meetings, they're early in the morning on Wednesdays after board meetings, so they're not always And in addition to that, we're usually just giving them more and more to do. So they're not always full of joy, honestly. They come in and do their job, but they actually like applauded when we told them about the hiring deal. Like, so it was a big deal. And most significant, I think, what we will see is these, like we're seeing now with some of these future dominoes where somebody moves into the special education department and then that creates an opening at a campus.
Yeah.
And we've actually had that example in the last few days where now the campus knows they have the opening, they can post it, they can move, where prior to this, they would have had to wait until after the April board meeting to know that they had that vacancy, so they wouldn't have posted it for another 2 weeks from now, so it delayed them. So that's where we're really going to see the biggest pieces. So that was really great. So thank you.
I'm also guessing that because of this change that we did, that it helped us. I mean, you can see the numbers because didn't Klein have theirs before us?
Yes.
And then I think someone else had their
Tom
job
Ball,
fair.
Katie.
I mean, it's like almost
Magnolia.
everyone, and we still had that number
Yes.
of people show up.
Yeah,
So.
and we've historically done well. I think numbers, pre-COVID, it's a whole different world. But we used to get to 1,000, 1,100 at a job fair, but to be at 800 is still, compared to these other places, very strong. People want to get here. Now our principals need to do a good job of picking the right folks and sealing the deal. So,
Yeah, but anything we can do to differentiate ourselves in a positive way.
Right.
In a positive way.
Yeah.
And timely hiring is definitely
sure helps.
a differentiator. Yeah.
Indeed. So, okay. Well, we'll transition now into the budget presentation, and once again, Darren will present this. There's a certain depth that we can get into in a budget presentation. We're always happy and would welcome any of you that want to go deeper individually to visit with Darren and Karen. We can set that up at any time. But this will be, I think, a good surface level conversation. We try to go a little deeper than normal as well. So, Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to present the preliminary budget for 2023.
Is your mic on?
Yes, sir.
Pull it closer to you. Just so.
Got to eat the mic.
There you are. There you are.
To present the preliminary budget for 2023-2024. Tonight, Ms. Garza and I are going to present, and we really want a conversation with the board about the general fund budget. We will discuss budget goals and challenges, provide legislative update on financial bills, explain the estimates used in the formulation of the budget, and how they affect the budget itself. I'd like to start my presentation showcasing some of our recent and ongoing awards, and we're proud of all of our awards, but I will mention just a few tonight. Transparency is something CISD takes very seriously. When the State Comptroller's Office came out with the transparency program, CISD was the first district in the state to earn transparency awards from the state for our finance, debt, and purchasing presentations. 13 years later, we continue to not only meet the guidelines, but exceed them. I encourage you all to visit the district's transparency website. Texas Smart Schools program highlights success in two dimensions, both cost-effective finances and academic performance. Conroe ISD is one of only 2 ISDs, the other district is Cy-Fair, out of over 1,200 to receive the highest rating of 5 stars for all years of the program.
We have a new award we would like to highlight this evening on the far left of your screen. We have been participating in the ASBO and GFOA award programs for many years, and this year we decided to expand that to a new award program administered by the Texas Association of School Business Officials called the TASBO Award for Excellence in Financial Management. This award recognizes Texas school districts that demonstrate professional standards, best practices, and innovations in the area of financial management and reporting. Conroe ISD is one of only 23 districts statewide to be recognized for this award.
This chart compares our general fund operating expenditures by function, comparing us with our peer school districts. And just take a look at a few of the areas that I highlighted. We can see in instruction, which is function 11, that is direct classroom instruction. We're at 63.22%. And if you look at our other districts, we're about middle of the road as far as expenditures in our instruction. Come all the way down to transportation, you can see we are the highest. Once again, we are the largest geographically, and we transport the higher percentage of our students than any other district. General administration, we are the lowest in expenditures in general administration. Facilities maintenance and operations, we are the highest out of all those districts, and I think that points to the fact that we have, in the recent past, we've been having to expend a lot of our M&O budget into maintenance and operation because a large portion of that got cut out of the last bond referendum. So we're purchasing chillers and boilers and freezers out of the general fund budget instead of putting that money into the classrooms. If you look further down, you can see our operating expenditures per student. We're at $87.48 per student, and we're one of the lower districts on this chart. The last red column you see, or row you see there, that's the districts, and that's how much of the golden pennies that we access. Conroe and Klein are the only two districts that access only 5 cents. You can see that Fort Bend does a little over 11 cents, and Katie's at almost 16 cents as far as golden and copper pennies that they access.
On the transportation,
Yes, ma'am.
can you remind me how we allow families to access the bus? Like, it's 1 mile from the campus, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And how does that compare with some of these other districts, or what we're required to do?
I'm not particularly sure what other districts. I know that is Mr. Davila here?
Do you know, Sam?
Some of the other districts are transporting less than 1 mile. For instance, Cyfair, they transport everybody in the district basically. The 1 mile can be a little misleading in that we also transport hazardous students and hazardous conditions as approved by the hazardous committee. So we do transport quite a few students under 1 mile as well. And then for the other districts, the standard usually is 2 miles.
That's what I was looking for.
Other districts transport.
2 miles.
Part of the,
That's what the state.
Yeah, that's the state.
yeah, the state reimburses at 2 mile. Part of the reality for us, if you go to 2 miles, let's say, is it wouldn't necessarily generate the savings you might would expect because there'd be so many hazardous routes, like Sam just mentioned, like all crossing major thoroughfares, those type of things. So it's not the savings are not linear, when you think about that.
I did have a question about the golden and copper pennies.
Yes, ma'am.
You were saying that, or pointing out that Klein and Conroe are the only two to not, that are at the 5 cents.
Uh-huh.
I think I understand the answer to this, but I would just like to ask it.
Okay.
In that, is the reason we don't exercise more of that is because then we need to go to a vader?
That is correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And is it that we don't think they would vote for it, or we don't want to have to ask for it?
I think typically, historically our board has been very focused on just keeping the tax rate as low as possible, and so that's what we've always focused on. Now we're seeing now these gaps that have widened over time. So one of the challenges with the Vaders, they're very hard to explain, right? It's, going out for a bond election is tangible. People say, I vote for this, I'm going to get these buildings, I'm going to get these additions. You go out for the Vader and you say, we're going to have a Vader, and people go, what? Like, so what am I getting? I'm not getting anything different. So just in our area historically, Vaders were very successful 15 years ago. So a lot of these districts that went for these, they went for them a while back. In our area, and more recently, Magnolia failed one 4 or 5 years ago. Klein failed one 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't know that anyone has had one near us. Closest one that I can think of is College Station.
Station.
Yeah.
They passed
was
one.
successful.
Yeah, they just passed one. Now what they did,
Was College Station primarily for teacher raises?
it was completely,
That's what I was about to
yeah,
ask.
it's completely. So I would, my recommendation in the future would be, we know we're going to have be in a situation potentially have a bond in November. So some districts I have seen have done both at the same time. I think that's a lot. But if we had a bond in November and then you all chose to want to do a Vader in the future, I do think it helps when you can say, like, this is the one thing we're spending the money on, because that it helps people understand it. Like, so College Station, I believe, did 2 pennies, and it was a 4% raise for all staff. Like that was the,
For all staff.
for all staff, like that was boom, that's how they communicated it and had a successful campaign. So,
differentiation. So
yes, yeah, so I think that helps. Ones, previously that I've seen be less successful, it gets more convoluted as to what they're gonna spend the money on, and people don't get it.
And so I came across the College Station story, but I couldn't find information on how it actually like looks to the voter on the ballot.
Mhm.
Do you know that? Like, how does it?
The exact ballot language?
Yeah. How does it show up?
I think it just says that you will be approving a tax rate increase. I don't know that you can,
That's what it says.
yeah, and I think you can, like in the bond language, we can put for the building of new schools, additions,
Yeah.
I think so. You may be able to list out for staff,
Sure.
compensation. But that's one of the things that we will see in Darren's presentation tonight is the compensation piece. As far as raises goes, we're still waiting on the state, and that's going to be an area that we're a little fragile. But it could be future, where all these other districts have these extra funds to be able to do some things with that we just don't have. So, all right.
So this is a graphic that shows the life of a bill from the time that it is filed until it reaches the governor's desk and becomes law. Majority of the bills that are being considered in the legislative session right now are in where you see the yellow box that says "We are here." And we share this information with you tonight only to make the point that we have a long way to go to get to the finish line. We are tracking several bills that are of interest to us that might impact funding, but lots of things could change between now and the end of the legislative session. So this is a side-by-side look of the House and the Senate's base biennial state budget that they have presented. They are very similar. As you can see, property tax relief is a huge priority in this legislative session. The House has set aside $17.3 billion, the Senate $16.5, both $2.4 billion for the increase in the golden penny yield, and then $5 billion for other school funding increases, and then various amounts for TRS active care.
So taking a look at the legislative update on property tax relief, getting a little deeper in the weeds with these two bills. The House and the Senate both have substantial amount of funds committed to property tax relief, but they take different approaches in each one. The House is basically more global, taking into account all real property, where the Senate is more concentrating on the homeowner. So in the House side, they have additional Tier 1 tax rate compression, an additional 15 cents compression above what House Bill 3 currently is going to calculate, and then a 5% appraisal cap on all real property. So that's not only residential, but that's also commercial. And that, as Ms. Garza said, a cost of $17.3 billion. However, on the Senate side, they have additional tax rate compression of 7 cents, and their goal is to increase the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $70,000 and increase the over 65 exemption and disabled exemption to $30,000. And this is at a cost of $16.5 billion.
So now we're going to move into some of the bills that we are keeping an eye on. The first one is House Bill 100 that has been presented by King. This is recommending a $50 increase in the basic allotment. This would generate roughly $4.5 million for the district. They are requiring that 50% of this be designated for teacher raises. That equates to about a 1% raise for our teachers only. And then they're also recommending an increase in the transportation allotment on the mileage rate for regular transportation miles at $1.54, up from the current rate at $1. And this would generate roughly $2.5 million for the district.
So Dutton has two bills, House Bill 11 that we're following, and this bill creates teacher residency partnership program. It expands pre-K eligibility to children of teachers, and as we discussed this morning, I don't know where we will put those children. It creates a grant program for TRS costs related to employing retired teachers and enhancements to our teacher incentive allotment. House Bill 5170, it removes all appropriations limits on the fast growth allotment. To us, that will mean about $5 million in additional revenue, and once again, increasing the basic allotment by $50, and it does add an inflation factor. However, we do not know what that inflation factor is at this time.
So on Dutton's HB 11, I don't recall, does it state how much, is it the same payment of what they would give us for the pre-K student, and then we pay the difference for the district, or is it fully covered? Do you know? I don't recall.
I do not know at this point, yeah.
I've read so
We
many now, I don't.
were actually watching testimony on it, and
Yeah.
they didn't get into that point.
Okay,
yet.
well, I've read it and I don't recall it, and that's why I was wondering, because that's a huge incentive. But if, I mean, again, where are we gonna
Where are we
put
gonna-
them?
Yeah, that's our struggle.
And then if it's not fully funded, then we're still left doing that as an incentive for our teachers. So anyway, go ahead.
Do they ever fully fund?
No.
No.
They
No.
like to put the rules on us and then leave us to
It's
figure
called
it out.
unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that brings up a great point. Thank you, Ms. Oldmiller. You teed that up beautifully for me. Before I get to Senate Bill 9, I'm just going to hit Senate Bill 8 for a second, because everyone asks me, as the leader of our largest school district, about voucher system and what would that impact be for us. And there's nothing positive in a voucher system for Conroe Independent School District, nothing at all. You divert funds out of the school district, that's not positive for us. And I want to make this clear. Like, I believe in our schools, and I think our teachers are wonderful. I believe in our programs. And so competition scares me none at all. But fair competition should be fair. And so to create a parallel system to us that has zero accountability to taxpayers and has zero expectations from the state of all these rules and unfunded mandates that we are forced to follow, but we're going to create a parallel system that is not forced to follow that system, I believe is completely unfair. So off my soapbox about that one. On to the next one. Senate Bill 9 is what I believe, beyond the voucher bills, is the most dangerous bill at the moment for Conroe ISD. And if there was something that you all felt like you wanted to engage in conversation about as a trustee or community member, I believe this is the one where we need your voices to be heard. This bill offers, as it currently stands, that for any districts that have over 20,000 students, teachers would receive a $2,000 raise. For school districts that have under 20,000 students, teachers would receive a $6,000 raise. So what that means
They go to
is
rural.
every school district in Montgomery County, every teacher in Montgomery County would get a $6,000 raise, except the teachers that teach for Conroe ISD. They would get a $2,000 raise.
I need to look
I,
Just because they're having a real hard time. Rural districts, small districts are having a hard time
so
staffing.
Senator Creighton and I have talked about this because it's something that I'm very worried about. His concern, which I understand, is that there are districts in West Texas that are paying teachers $38,000 a year, which I understand. We need to raise the floor. I don't disagree with raising the floor at all. I also know that it's a lot more expensive for us to do business here than it is in the small town somewhere. And so, he's talking about wanting to close that gap. My argument is not that Willis or Montgomery or any of these smaller districts than 20,000, that their teachers should only get 2,000, because I believe teachers should get every penny that they deserve. And I think every teacher should get $6,000, including our great Conroe ISD teachers. And so, to me, this, if this were to pass as it's currently written, we would immediately become the lowest paid school district in Montgomery County by far, and that would be a problem for us. And we have no mechanism to close that gap. We don't have a fund balance to support. There would be no way to close that. So this to me is something that we must engage in. And you think about the number of districts that are less than 20,000 students is probably
The vast majority.
it's probably 950 districts out of the, or more,
1,100.
probably more than that, probably a 1,000 out of the 1,100. So 1,000 districts may say this is fine, but my guess is probably 40 or 50% of the teachers actually teach in the districts that have over 20,000 students. So we'd really be leaving a lot out.
So this would be in addition to the Robin Hood spending?
Yeah, so this would just be, but they haven't really said what the funding mechanism would be. I assume it would, I don't know how they would fund it, but this is just how
Yeah.
it is written. So,
The cost of this program right now is $2 billion that we saw today, but there is no funding mechanism yet identified.
and so he's asked, I've tried to share with him some ideas. We've had good conversation as far as, Senator Creighton cares and he asks and we have a good conversation. He asked for suggestions. A couple of the suggestions I made was, hey, just increase the basic allotment by a substantial amount, not $50 like House Bill 1, but increase it by a substantial amount, and instead of saying 50% must go to designated teacher raises, say 80% has to go. Like, force those districts that currently don't pay their teachers, force them to pay their teachers. We're going to pay our teachers here, A, because we believe in what they do and they earn it, but B, there's a market here that we have to compete with.
Yes.
Some folks take advantage of the fact that they don't have a market to compete with and don't invest their money in their teachers. So that was one option that we talked about. We also talked about, moving us off of funding based on attendance and moving us to funding based on enrollment, and then do the same thing. Say, 80% of the additional funds that you receive must go to teacher raises, or something along those lines. So tried to offer a few suggestions to that. I also offered, something about if you really want to address rural and instead of the bill as it's written here, like perhaps there needs to be a cap on county population. So, perhaps you say if you're in a county that has less than, I have no idea, 75,000 people, then this rule applies. But if you're in a county over 75,000, then it wouldn't. As you think about here, once again, in our county, we're the only ones that would not receive the raise.
Right.
Harris County, there are some small districts scattered out in, on the suburbs of Harris County that would get it, but then your Cy-Fair and Klein and, another example for us right here is Klein would not get it, we would not get it, but Tomball would. That's going to be tough for us. New Caney would get it on our east boundary, Tomball on our west boundary.
What about
Montgomery,
Glendora?
And New Caney
Glendora,
already pays
everybody
for
in Montgomery
Everyone
County
around
would get
us.
it.
Yes.
So it's
And I'm sure there are other counties.
no doubt, absolutely. So we would be, standing here with, and sometimes it is harder to work in a big district sometimes. Like, our expectations are different. It's more difficult to, so we tend to pay a little bit more than some of these surrounding districts, but that's part of the give and take of working in a big place. But if we lose the advantage of having competitive salaries, and we have these greater expectations in overcrowded schools and all the challenges that come with being in a big place, we will lose our standing. So this one makes me nervous. I think we need to make sure that our voice is heard, because for a lot of folks, this is fine. Like, this will be great. Like, if they can get $6,000, it'd be great.
Did he seem open to the suggestions? Is he still working through some things, or feel like he's determined to go this
Somewhat. I do think that this bill is somewhat tied to Senate Bill 8 in some ways, because the rural communities typically are not pro-voucher. So I don't know for sure if that is part of the intent here of this bill,
We can certainly
to
find out.
serve the rural places. So,
Good to know.
but-
Dr. Knoll,
yes.
do we know, has this, sorry, you used up your time?
No, we're good.
That wasn't me.
No.
So, do we know where this is in the process? Has it been to hearings? Has it been read?
I don't know for
I
sure.
believe it is out of committee on
It
the
is out
Senate
of
side.
committee?
It has not gone to vote yet, but it is out of committee.
From?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, I've had conversations directly with Senator Creighton, talked to staff multiple times. They know where we stand. I actually did share with them very candidly that we had to present this tonight because you all have to know this, and that I expected that, it would probably garner some attention from our staff, because I did not want them to feel like we were setting them up. So they were aware that we had to present this evening, because we do. Like, it's real, and we have to talk about it. But I do think that feedback is important for them. And they asked, like, well, we'd love to hear the feedback. And I said, well, I think I can anticipate it, but I will.
We're already challenged
Right.
in fighting for quality educators and employees in the district to these other districts around us.
Yes.
We give them, I mean, they do this, and it will
Be
devastating.
sunk, yes. So, yeah, so this is one I just wanted to speak on because it scares me more than any of the other things out there. Because this, even, once again, we've talked about vouchers, I don't want to talk about, even a voucher bill would not have the immediate negative impact on us that we would feel this the day it passes.
Yeah,
You know,
this
we're,
has kind of been tucked away. This is the first thing of
Yeah.
this. I appreciate you bringing it
yes,
to our attention.
so, and then, once again, like the other bill, expanding pre-K eligibility of children and teachers. I love the idea. I think it's a great perk for being a teacher, but it is a struggle for us that we have to understand that classroom space for us is a
Premium right now.
yeah. So I wouldn't argue against this. I'd love to have this. We just have to understand if this gets included in any bill, we'll probably be back buying more portables because it likely to click us over on some campuses. But that's okay. And then the teacher incentive allotment enhancements. We all remember that from our conversations a few months ago. We are in the teacher incentive allotment. We do believe in that. It's nice when teachers can see these large payments. So that part of it is great, but the first part is bothersome.
On SB 9, is there a chance that this could be another unfunded mandate?
Well, no, they would have to fund it because there's like even if they said you must give all teachers a $2,000 raise, you're going to see in today's budget we don't have a budget to do that, so they'd have to fund it to make it happen. But the struggle would be like if this is the only additional funding they give us, like if they all these tax compressions and everything that happens, if this is the result of additional funding, this would be really hard. Part of the other thing to remember, which the senator and I talked about, is, and you notice it in a few of these bills that come through, when they mandate money for teacher raises, which is okay. Let's just say even if they came back for us and said we got put in the $6,000 category, we would love it, and they said we're going to fund you a $6,000 raise for all your teachers. We have about 4,000 employees that aren't teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't give us any additional funding mechanism through basic allotment increase or through some other mechanism, we could find ourselves still sitting here with no way to fund a raise that would have to go to the other 4,000 employees. So, I love teacher raises, and I love that, but we can't forget that it takes all of the people here to make this school district function, and
Right.
no one is less important than the next. So,
But going back to our previous conversation, the Vader.
yes,
that
but
would be
absolutely,
more
and
potential
That's what
for
it's
and I
say.
think that's, but, back to that conversation of, all these things happen in a biennium, right? So it's two-year swings. So if we have a successful bond in November, then I think it's a worthy conversation for you all to be in about, especially if we find ourselves in a hole, do we go in May or do we go in the following November to specify it is for employee raises to try to make up a gap if that's what is created for us. So.
Well, I think that could certainly be an option. Has that been an option that has been discussed with Senator Creighton and what kind of effect that would have? Because that would be a negative. This right here would be a negative effect on our district. The $4,000 disparity, A, and then B, because we're a district that does right by our teachers, we would be basically asking to go for that, and that would negate any of these.
Well, I think potentially, I think what the point you're making is that we're a district that does right by our teachers, but as we saw on the previous slide, we're a district that does right by our taxpayers by keeping that
Right.
low tax rate.
Right.
And so if a bill like this is passed that then forces you all to go for a Vader and forces you all to increase the tax rate,
Right.
then that's not good for the tax. It's not good for teachers, but it's also not good for taxpayers
I
to be
understand that,
forced.
but
Yeah.
that's not a problem that we
Ab-
created.
1,000%.
We're just trying
Would
to
not be
fix
your
the problem.
creation. It would be
The
your
solution-
problem trying to solve, but it would not be your problem that you have created.
But I think with the circumstances, the community would be far more
Understand.
likely to understand our
If it,
position.
right, if that
Right.
was the message that was communicated to the community,
Yep,
right?
yep.
On the messaging.
Yeah, absolutely, but we do our best not to get too excited about bills too early, because things, but to your point, Ms. Dungan, like, this has been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of things that scare me, like, all of a sudden this gets passed and we stand here flat-footed and go, oh my.
Okay.
Right.
You know, so I think we need to make sure that we are properly engaging in conversation here. Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Darren.
Oh, sorry, one more question. On that on HB, or SB 9, is there a companion bill in the House?
I do not think so.
Okay.
I do
Well,
not know
there's
for sure,
parts
but I
of it
don't think.
represented in Duttons and Kings.
Yes, but I just meant
The
sometimes,
2,000, 6,000,
sometimes they'll
yeah.
do the exact same bill over in the
We're
other
not aware
one.
of one.
Okay, because
Yeah.
then that would have been another opportunity to speak publicly on it to the whole committee, but anyway, go ahead.
All right, moving on. The 4 bills on this slide are all related to school safety funding, and rightfully so, another large priority in the legislative session this year. There are currently 189 bills being considered on the topic of school safety. Our current school safety allotment generates $9.72 per ADA, and the bills on the screen here are recommending an increase of in the range of $10 per ADA all the way up to $100 per ADA, which would be a significant increase in funding for us. Our current allotment is roughly $650,000. The House Bill 3 by boroughs, the $15,000 per campus, would generate an additional $1 million for us. Another point of interest on the House Bill 3 is the requirement of an armed school safety security officer at every campus during regular school hours. This would be at a cost of roughly $3 million and an additional 38 officers if this were to become law. So hopefully if that does, that they do fund this for us. And looking at it, you know, it would have to be much larger than a $10 ADA increase for us to be able to fund that mandate.
So now moving to the general fund budget itself, we'll start with taking a look at the major components that drive the budget, and that begins with our budget objectives. And they include to meet the needs for the 2023-2024 school year. This year we are opening Hines Elementary, New Moorhead Junior High, and retrofit to Veterans Memorial Intermediate. This year we want to provide a competitive compensation plan. We want to provide a safe learning environment for our students and staff. And we want to provide targeted support for our students and staff by absorbing ESSER positions into the general fund budget. But this is a legislative year, so we do have budget challenges. Once again, the legislature, we're just at the beginning of that process. We have unprecedented growth. We're seeing 3,000, 2,600 student growth each year. There's no funding mechanism in the current funding formula to provide a raise for our employees or address inflation. Once again, the ESSER funding cliff, we have 225 positions currently paid for by ESSER at a total of $16 million. And we also have no funding mechanism for our employee retention stipend for next year. So as we look at the financial position of the district, we need to start by looking at our fund balance. And our goal is to maintain an unassigned fund balance in the range of 20 to 25% of our budget. Our 2022-2023 budget is right at $620 million. Our projected unassigned fund balance at 8/31/23 is $176 million. 20% of our budget is our target, and that's about $124 million. As y'all might remember, the board did designate about $48.8 million, 18.8 of that for the bond contingency fund and $30 million to purchase land, providing us an actual capacity of about $3.4 million in our fund balance. Now, with the passage of the future bond referendum, the board did do a reimbursement resolution. Y'all did approve that reimbursement resolution where we could get that $30 million back on our land purchases, so that could provide capacity if y'all wanted to use that for a future retention stipend or something like that.
And on the contingency fund,
Yes, ma'am.
have we used that?
We have not used any.
Okay.
We're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, all the fingers, yeah.
Can you go back real quick?
Yeah,
No, a couple more, because I missed something I was going to ask you about the armed security guard. How is that different than what we're doing now?
Just every campus.
At every campus.
Yeah,
We're
right
talking
now
about
we have,
elementary.
so right now we have, multiple officers high schools, we have
Mm-hmm.
officers all junior highs, but then our elementaries, sometimes they share, they may
Right, 'cause
share
they're close.
close by. So it would just require more, total officers. This is a good example of one of those things like, even if they funded this,
Are there
that-
even
well,
available?
that's the point.
Yeah.
They're not out there. So the reality is, it would cost way more than it would cost just to hire 38 more officers, because we would have to bump our pay so significantly for all officers to even, because it's like teachers, great law enforcement officers, there's only so many in the world.
Does it have to be a law enforcement officer, or are there alternatives to retired military? Have they specified what grounds, like, they have to be hired? Do they have to be hired as a law enforcement?
I think we would want to be very thoughtful and intentional and
Yeah, I
careful
think
about who.
Right,
we put
but.
on it.
I mean, it does say armed school security officer. Now, we don't know if
Right,
retired
so-
military qualifies for that or not, but
I
it
would
would be
think
an
so.
armed security,
Yeah.
Yeah.
officer. So I'd assume
Yeah,
it
the
would be
challenge,
a-
when we'd have to work through that, I know
Anyone that-
and I don't know if he's in here, but Chief is somewhere right now. I know he's, we're very nervous about, whoever it is, whatever their status is, being properly trained as to how to deal with children, because bringing someone in has all the potential in the world of being a negative, but
And
I think.
That brings me to another
Yeah.
question regarding chaplains. This
Mhm.
is something that I've been
Uh-huh.
asked about, chaplains in schools. That's not something we currently in Conroe ISD are utilizing, to
Mhm.
my knowledge. But could they essentially be armed if they were trained?
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the chaplain, I know we talked briefly about it. I know the school marshal program is the one where you can vote to arm teachers or staff members. I don't know the chaplain program as well. Any of those things could be on the table.
I think it's an option.
Mhm.
For-
But like I said, once, the concern always is just the potential negative impacts of
Sure.
that. And then making certain that anybody we bring from the outside, that if their only job is to be there and have a weapon and not do all the other job, is to make sure that their pay doesn't approach the pay of our police officers who have the full responsibility of the job. That's always a concern too. So
I just
who
think
knows?
there's
Yeah.
there's a few opportunities to explore.
There's a current bill, SB 763 is a school chaplain bill that's up right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I had it in my bag.
Yeah. So I think there's some opportunity there.
Okay, moving on to attendance data. And have y'all heard me say many times, this is the most important slide we can look at for our M&O budget, because our state revenue estimates and our campus expenditure budgets rely on our enrollment data. We are estimating the 2023-2024 enrollment to increase by 2,600 students to a total of 73,394. Our enrollment is taken on our snapshot date, which is the last Friday of each October. Our average daily attendance, or ADA, is estimated at 92.5% of enrollment, and this calculation is based on attendance throughout the year. And this is the area that we have the most risk in our budget estimates, because our expenditure budget is set on enrollment, while our revenue budget is based on our ADA. And before COVID, our ADA was right around 94%.
Mr. Rice?
Yes, sir.
I have a question about that, because I'm curious. I know that it's down prior to COVID, but do we know if large districts, Northside Independent School District, Cy-Fair, and some of these other larger districts, does their ADA go down the bigger the school district gets? Like, is this truly a COVID era change? Or because we're getting bigger, that number has a
I think
tendency
it
to
is
go down?
strictly a COVID era
Yeah.
change. I think
It is.
I really do.
Attendance is heavily, it's heavily a campus-based situation more than we are a compilation of many campuses, but I think, the campus culture, the community culture of, hey, we'll leave for a week to go on vacation, or those are very central on campuses and communities. So I don't know that the district growing really impacts this number because the campuses individually are the ones that are focused on it.
Okay, so I understand now. Basically,
Yeah, every
COVID
district's
kinda-
kind of experiencing this. Arcady, Kleins, all
the
our peer
COVID
districts.
kind of trained us to say we can take that extra day.
Indeed, yeah, and there's good and bad to that, right? Like, I think we're all parents here. There's probably been a day in our parental lives that we said, "You're all right, go." We've probably all been there, right?
What fever?
Yeah, you're okay.
Take some Motrin, let's go.
Yeah, you're and I think the world today is a little less likely to do that, which is probably good, right? I think it's less kids sick, but it does negatively show up here. Like if we weren't funded in this manner, we would all celebrate that and say, good, people are being more responsible and proactive and not getting everybody else's kids sick. But when we're funded this way, and one of the points to make here, I think that we have not used our numbers here in an attempt to balance our budget. And what I mean by that is we've seen some districts that still are projecting 95, 96% attendance. And good for them if they can do it, but they're probably not. But when you build, like if we were building our budget and we put 96 in here, we would have what, 12, 14 million dollars more?
Yes, exactly.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah, 16 million more. So if we projected at 95, we could put 16 million more, and we could say we have a balanced budget, but then in the end we could have a shortfall. We don't play those games here. We're honest with what we think the number will be on the front end.
I have a
Yeah.
question. So has the funding always been done this way?
Yes.
Yes,
Based
ma'am.
on attendance, not enrollment?
Yes,
ma'am.
but as you can see, pre-COVID, we were so consistent that at least you really kind of always
That's the
knew.
only difference is
Hmm.
COVID?
The volatility of COVID. Yeah. So I mean, you see like 14
If we could,
all the way down to 2021. I mean, we were within fractions of a point, and so we sort of knew where we would be. Now we have this volatility that
And that 2% equates to how much did you say?
Every percent is $4
$4
million.
million. And I would, and I don't know if Dr. Hines is here, but in the early 2000s, we were running about 92%, but the district made a concerted effort to get that average daily attendance up, and kudos to Dr. Hines, his leadership pushed that to where we were getting well over 94%, ADA, however we run into COVID, so just wanted to point that
So
out.
has it ever been argued that to fund based on enrollment?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. Argued again this year when I met with them prior to them going to Austin. It was actually my number one.
Yeah.
It was the number one thing on my list when I met with them as a priority. Like this, you did this one change.
I was just going to ask that.
It's just going to cost money.
What we heard today was that they feel there's no accountability if they fund based on enrollment versus ADA. They use the word accountability.
And I love that accountability. Just to go back to vouchers, but we're going to give the full amount to a child, even if we don't know if they're going to go to school at all. But we're not trusted enough to enroll a child and withdraw them. And there are plenty of systems that can be put in place. 10 absences in a row, you're automatically withdrawn to not fund. There's options. I even made the argument, not that I want to see. I think they have almost $30 billion extra money. I think they could put the money in here and make us whole and fit it. But I would even make the argument of do the math and figure out however much you pay us typically and use the same amount of money so it doesn't cost you more money, but lock us in so we know what we're getting so that we're not guessing on a revenue while we're creating expenditures. Just get us locked in. Even if you don't put more money in the system, just lock us in on a number. Right, but that hasn't
No,
I
no.
think it does feel like it's maybe getting a little more momentum.
Yeah,
There's been
as
more
we-
conversation about it this time
Yeah,
than there
as-
ever has been.
Yeah, as we discussed this morning during practice, we have seen in the bills where they are going to enrollment or they are proposing to go to enrollment on all the special programs, CTE, special ed. In those areas, they are going to move towards enrollment, but that won't take effect until the second year of the biennium. It won't come into effect the first year, but they're looking to implement that in the second year of the biennium.
So what year would that be?
24, 25.
24, 25.
Yeah, next year.
Year after.
Year
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
I'm already in next
Yeah,
year.
we're already
Year
into that
after
next,
Yeah, I'm already in next year. So this chart just shows our enrollment trend over the last 10 years. As you can see in 22, 23, on our snapshot date, we were at 70,794. With a growth of 2,600 students, we're looking at enrollment of 73,394. And our enrollment as of March 29th was 71,419. So we're moving right up that slope, getting there.
I'll just make a point here while you're on the slide. So that was the 329 number.
Mhm.
We've added 21 students since that day.
Yeah.
So it's
That was
just,
what date?
so on 329 we were 71,419. Today we're 71,440. So it's just, it never stops.
It never stops.
You know, so but by the time we get to the end of this year, we will. I'm sure we
Do we-
probably will pass 71.5 at some point.
Are we in any way monitoring where they're coming from, where the,
all the
are these
new development.
Yeah, no, I mean,
homes, new?
No, I mean, we could figure out like where, which schools they're hitting, but it's been pretty
Over.
everywhere. But as far as like everywhere, I think is where they're coming from. We get some from,
Everywhere.
local,
Curiosity.
out of state. Yeah, I think internationally we get all, I think we're getting all of that, which is why we're seeing,
A steady rate.
So, yeah, such a huge number. But that's, when you just look at from snapshot to today to see how much we've grown, snapshot's the end of October. So, to have grown, what is that, 800 kids almost,
Mhm.
just since the end of October. It's pretty, a lot of school districts, if they grew 800 kids in a year,
They
period,
couldn't
like in
handle
a
it.
school year, it would be a giant story. We've done it during the school year.
So with all the new homes coming in?
Yeah, it's just, and I think, PASA talked about this. Me being a little naive and not being fully educated, like I thought when interest rates started going up that our housing sales were going to slow down, and I were asking them that question, and they sort of looked at me like, "Oh, that's cute. How you don't understand." But but what sort of happens is sometimes that means the builders shift to smaller lot size, more affordable homes, which actually sell faster and increase density. So when I thought, looking at it like, oh, we're going to slow down, it's going to be great, and the reality, they're like, no, it's going to speed you up.
Yeah. And as I mentioned to you Saturday, the family from New Mexico
Yes.
is one very good example of a medical family coming here for jobs. and
Absolutely.
Bringing their kids.
They're coming.
They're selling their house.
Well, I think there's also an additional trend. People need places to live,
Mm-hmm.
but out at Hope Elementary, is it elementary, Hope?
Mhm.
Yeah, intermediate, it's
Mm.
Hope Elementary, excuse me.
Yeah.
That whole community, I looked and said, this thing is just blowing up. People are buying homes, and the principal said, that's a rental neighborhood.
Yes.
You can't buy that house. That's a rental neighborhood. So to your point, smaller homes, smaller footprint, and then renting them out because there's nowhere else.
Which is
People need to
more
have-
likely to be a young family,
Correct.
right? With a
younger
lot of young
kids
children,
that
and to
wanna
be in
around
that
elementary
situation.
school.
And I know that, I was speaking with a gentleman just recently that is in that,
Neighborhood?
no, that he is in the production, the development of those communities. And I think, I could be wrong, because I've heard so many rumors about it, but that one right off Burnham Woods
Mm-hmm.
that just went in, that's densely populated with all those homes, that's what they're doing. They're lumping all their utilities, everything into one rental rate, period. It's a
There've been
one-stop shop.
and we saw in our demographic
And they're
study,
growing in those.
we're expecting that with manufactured homes too, a lot in the East County, but then to see them with homes.
Lots of incentives.
Yeah, and it's, but I think what's unique to us is you think Hope Elementary, once again, you go there, if you'd have been there at the beginning of the school year, you go now there's all these houses, and those are at one price point, more, early family type homes.
Sure.
But then we watch the pictures from Mr. Foster every week of Hines, and, 6 months ago, Hines was sitting in a field by itself. Now we see, and those are a whole different price point of homes, right? Those are, and yet they're going up just as
They're
fast.
getting
selling
very
just as
creative.
fast.
That's why it's so strange that developers don't want to like cut deals with us for land since
Right.
it raises their property
I know.
values so much.
I know.
But some do. Some work with us.
They work with us typically on, a location or helping us, but they don't.
They don't cut us a deal on the
There's not
price.
much deals being made on the. We get there are times where we feel like we're getting a decent deal, but
Well,
I haven't seen any that I felt like the developer was really like really helping us out. Like,
I mean, they also have a duty, right?
and they
to
answer
make a
the.
profit, and they could make way more putting a house on that lot than selling it to us, for sure. So I think
Potentially,
it's
but
about how
it's a
you
give and-
look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
it.
it's a give and
values
take.
go up
Yeah.
too.
All the school districts around us are getting property that way.
Mhm.
Better than what they're doing for us
Right.
around our area.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting point you make, and I think that's something we also need to imprint on ourselves, is that property values rise and property values are a direct reflection of the school district and the excellence of the school district. And as we saw from Mr. Rice's first slide of all the accommodations, at least on the financial one, and then as we have seen the accommodations for best school district in Montgomery County, most diverse school district in Montgomery County. Those are things that signal to people who move into this district that I want to live in this district and I want to buy property in this district. And I think as a board and as members of the leadership team of the district, we have such a responsibility, not just to the community that attends our schools and the community that works in our schools, but all of the property owners in this community, to maintain the standards of this district and to not take us down new avenues. And so I think that is a very important point, and that we need to imprint on ourselves when we consider drastic changes to implement in this district. Those are not the things that got us to where we are, and those are not the things that signal to people that I want to live in this district.
But I think it also signals to our developers that if you want people to keep coming here,
You need to help, yeah.
they need to help.
And we
They need to help with property, making property affordable for the districts to continue to put in schools in their neighborhoods and make it a positive.
And we've seen the negative impact when we don't get land. We're still on 1488 corridor, right? That's the most glaring example we have right now. The court probably has the number, but how many kids is it that live north of 1488?
2,750.
So 2,750, and we don't have a school because they
But
wouldn't
what's
sell us one.
interesting about that is it was a selling point for that developer.
Absolutely, it was.
That they would attend Woodland School.
No
So
doubt.
again, it's a reflection of the attitude and pride in this district and
Right.
how we have a responsibility to safeguard that.
Yep.
Well, it's not a,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's, I'm with you. I would love for them to bring the prices down as well. And so only 8 years that I've been doing this, and I've been on a couple of meetings, executive meetings, where we talk about the land. And, a lot of the conversations, we're all pressing. We'll go back to Easy Foster and say, press them, press them on this, on these prices. And traditionally, if they don't press, sometimes they'll say the land will come with utilities, and that's a big help. That's a big expense. And so when we look at, I've been looking at the cost of an elementary school. If it's $30 million, the land purchase is the smallest number.
Yeah.
It's not. It's nice to have it less expensive, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's the least expensive thing about that entire school is the actual land, which was surprising to me. And that was something that I learned from Ray Sanders, who had so much experience in that, and also from John Husbands, who had just a tremendous amount of experience with those things. So just sitting back and watching that process, like, yeah, I hear you, and I'm on the same page. I'd love for them to do it, but the developers are kind of got their hands tied too, because it's usually not just an individual developer, it's an investment company, and so they have investors that they have to answer to, and it's extremely difficult.
Part of that,
So it's a hard process, is
Well,
my
one
point.
thing I'm learning from talking with families is the true value to the families that are purchasing these homes is the location of the school.
Absolutely.
In that same neighborhood.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
again, perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am,
I
I agree.
agreed.
I agree.
One of the things that they do when they, you know, I think when we get the better deals, right, is when we are able to kind of reach out a little more into the future. You know, so when that developer is going to go in and they know they're going to develop a new section of a whole new neighborhood, when we can be ready and able to say, you know what, we want to buy 2 sites in that new section, so before they ever roll a bulldozer or do anything, they know they have some areas sold. I think that's when we tend to see our better deals come in. You know, 3 properties in the new Woodson section, right, by Grand Oaks. Those are those kind of deals. Like we were pretty early into that, and I would say we got a fair deal. I won't say that it was, but it was fair. And in the market down there that's super hot,
I think the
a fair
result
deal
is
is
what
pretty
you're
good,
seeing.
right? Like a
That's
fair
what
deal is
you're
probably a
going
good
that
deal,
far.
indeed. But we were able to move on it pretty quickly, and that helped us. So it's a
Well, and every time we save or do well on it, that even if the amount of the building of a school is the minor part
Right.
of the building of the school, that's money that we
Every-
freed up to put towards something else on that building.
every penny matters, indeed. So, and you know, the bond committee. We'll talk about the bond committee here in a few minutes, but you know, that's part of their consideration of how much money will they you know, have for you all available moving forward into the future, so that when those new things happen, you can go and continue to be ready. So, all right, thank you.
All right, so on that subject of property values, this is our certified property value estimate. We're using a 10% growth measure for next year that will generate an additional $5.2 billion in value, bringing our total certified value to $57.3 billion. And as a reminder, this increase in value generates no net new revenue for the general fund, but due to House Bill 3, however, this is the primary source of revenue for the debt service fund. This is a message that Dr. Knoll and Mr. Rice have shared in multiple presentations, but we feel it's extremely important to continue to share this information with our community. In fact, Mr. Rice shared this slide with a group of 150 realtors last fall and with the bond planning committee earlier this spring, and it has been eye-opening for many as they were unaware that this is how the formulas work. There is a misconception that with growing property values, the district will have a windfall of money in our operating budget, and that is simply not true. The slide demonstrates how higher property values do not increase the district's general fund revenue. The increased property value benefits the state, not the district. The graphic on the right side is straight from TEA's website, and it shows that as our property values go up and increases our local tax revenue, the state reduces its funding for schools dollar for dollar. The graphic on the left shows that no matter what the property value increase is, whether it's 5% or 20%, our state calculated entitlement remains the same. The only change is in the state's portion that they pay versus what the local taxpayers must pay. This truly tells the story of how the state has generated a $30 billion surplus over the biennium.
And I think this really tells another story that although we have a tax revenue coming in, we're truly funded on student ADA. I really think that tells the story.
I just want to say I'm really glad you're sharing this, because up until last year, personally, I wasn't alone, I don't think that the community felt this was communicated enough. So I think the more it's communicated, the more understanding is going to be there, and I think that's going to change perspectives and attitudes toward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've had this slide every year. though.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was widely shared. I don't know, I
Well, it
mean,
was your first year for the realtor event, right?
Yeah, I think the more, we're being more intentional about the audiences, and I think that's where we would appreciate, certainly all of you all too. You have different reaches, each of you have different reaches, and so the more you all can help us, because, in a sense, sometimes it's more educated voters actually have a harder time understanding this than less educated. And what I mean by that is, folks that are engaged in the political process, a lot of times, like, they understand how county budget works, or they understand how city budget works, and so they want to apply the knowledge that they do have to the school district without knowing that it's a completely different system. So in that sense, like, being educated actually creates more struggle, because they just think that, well, the county's getting more money because of property value going up, so is the school district, and that's where it's like, well, no, we're not funded like that. And so, yeah, I think it's a great point.
I think it's great to share it with realtors and even staff, teachers, the more they know, the
Yeah,
better.
every chance we get, we're
Yeah.
to choose where we're preaching
Is
it.
this in the, so
Billboard.
when we do our annual review, a year in review basically that we plan in July,
Yes.
is something like this in there?
Yes, it was in last
Yeah.
year. It'll be in it again
Exactly.
this year.
It was in
Yeah,
last
it's a
year's.
constant. And the challenge with this slide, and I usually keep it in my, just when I do like my general presentation that I do at all these different
Sure.
clubs. The problem is, like, you could spend an hour on this and still not have people understand it. So it is a difficult slide just to put in
Not
and
as
talk briefly about and move on, because I think it does people go,
Well, how
what?
did that flyer that went out though that has us in here, how was that distributed?
Through community impact newspaper.
Did we send it out?
Yes.
We
Well,
sent out through
yes, through community impact. So
Right.
that was the cheapest way to get it distributed to everybody. We do the
Right.
same, so we'll have a year interview this year, same way. I think this will continue to be in there. We'll have.
And
annual
Dr.
budget.
Nolan and I covered this on a YouTube Live also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this so many
Yes.
times in so many
Right,
different.
I get it, but my
avenues.
point is, when did that go out? Does it go out in
In the summer.
July, August time period?
Right before school.
I think it went out the end of the school year.
I thought it was like May, end of May,
Yeah.
June.
Not November like reported, but it went out in
Oh, I
July.
don't know.
Yeah, it was in the summertime, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Mr. Rice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
July, went out in July.
Yeah, July.
Mr. Rice?
Mhm.
So we see this slide like so many times, like I've seen it, and something that I'm always, just haven't said anything about, but I think it might be helpful in understanding from just an optics view and reading slides, if the colors were the same on both optics.
Oh, fair say, okay.
Yeah,
So
a
I
good
just-
point, yeah.
So making that,
Yeah.
the arrow pointing down being green?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Have the same
Yeah.
color.
The only,
reverse.
we
I-
like this slide because it's straight off of TEA's website, and so I'm nervous, like, I don't wanna
So
change it
the
because I
color-
want it to be.
We could change our side.
Or is this off TEA's
That's
website as well?
TEA's
The
website.
left?
We did that,
we
the
did
left,
that. We
we could
created the
change the
left.
Okay,
left.
so we can change it on this side then?
Correct.
And leave TEA's, don't touch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
That's a good point, thank you.
Thank you for that.
No, it's a good point.
I'm a slide person.
All right, moving on to our tax rate components. Our current tax rate is $1.1146. It is made up of two separate components. First one is the general fund, or the maintenance and operations fund, and the second is the debt service fund. The general fund accounts for the day-to-day operations of the district. That includes salaries, benefits, utilities, fuel, etc. The debt service fund is used to pay the principal and interest payments on debt that we have issued to finance building of new facilities and other capital expenditures.
So this slide shows our tax rate history since 2018-2019, and as Ms. Garza said, our current tax rate is $1.1146. 26 cents of that is on the debt service side, and 85.46 cents is on the M&O side. Since 2018-2019, our tax rate has decreased by 16.54 cents, and this is accomplished by tax compression through House Bill 3. Under current law, further compression of the M&O tax rate is calculated at about 5.5 cents, reducing our tax rate to $1.597. But as we saw with the pending legislation that is out there, we're anticipating significant additional tax reduction on top of that. So this chart is a comparison of tax rates of the greater Houston area. If you look on the far right, you can see in the red column, that's Conroe ISD. We're the second lowest tax rate in the greater Houston area. The districts in the dark blue columns, that's our local Montgomery County school districts. And the school districts in the green, that is our peer school districts that we compare to or compete with, not only financially, but also academically. So now that we have discussed the major components that drive the budget, we will now look at the effect that they have on the budget itself, starting with the 2023-2024 funding estimate. That includes our local revenue. This is based off of our AV growth. That'll generate $13.1 million. But as Ms. Garza demonstrated, the state takes away dollar for dollar. So you see that reduction on state funding of $13.1 million. We are looking at a state funding increase. That is including the 2,600 new students in enrollment, plus the golden penny yield increase. And that golden penny yield increase, that is already in statute, so that is required for the legislature to fund that. So we included that in this budget already. That generated about $12.5 million of our $43.6 million that we're anticipating on the state funding side. We increased our interest income by $3 million. And then TRS on behalf, once again, this is just an accounting entry we have to do each year, so that is $1.75 million for total estimated funding increase of $48.35 million.
And that's based on the 73K, and that's based on the 73K enrollment
The
number?
ADA of the 73.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
would be the ADA of the 73.
Yes.
92.5%.
92.5% of that.
Of
Yeah.
that number.
Okay.
So now moving to the expenditure section of the budget, as we discussed earlier in the presentation, the expenditure budget is based primarily on student enrollment. Campus supply budgets are created with per student allocations, and our campus personnel allocations are created with student-teacher ratios. These student-teacher ratios are fluid and they change each year to make sure we continue to provide the educational resources needed at the campus level while at the same time being financially sound. We strive to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars, and Ms. Garza is going to present the allocation process in detail.
So we kind of wanted to give you like a high level overview of the allocation process from the start to finish and how we staff our campuses. Our starting point is the results of our PASA study, our demographer, and we use that as a guide to kind of determine what our total enrollment number is going to be moving into the next budget year. And then individual campus allocations are arrived at by using the current year enrollment and advancing all students by one grade level. We then start to build on that by making adjustments for rezoning that may impact a specific campus location, new neighborhoods that are coming online, and the just normal growth that occurs. This results in enrollment projections by campus, by grade level, and by general ed versus bilingual education. These enrollment projections are then loaded into our staffing spreadsheets, formulas are applied, and staffing allocations are built to support the enrollment at the campus. We then work closely with the deputy superintendent and the grade level superintendents to further refine the allocations based on individual campus needs. This is a very time-consuming and labor-intensive process. We feel it's extremely important to ensure that we have equity in terms of base staffing at all campuses. Additional allocations may be given to support special programs or other needs that are unique to a given campus. And of course, our Title I campuses do receive additional funding that can be used for additional allocations to support the specific needs at their campuses. So we wanted to kind of show you, we won't go into detail on this, but we wanted to show you what each of the grade span allocation charts look like. And this is what when I was referring to the allocation spreadsheet, those enrollment numbers are dropped in there. And then all of these ratios are applied. So we take everyone back down to the base staffing level, and then adjustments are made from there based on individual campus needs. So this is our elementary staffing spreadsheet. The student-to-teacher ratios are at the top of each of them. This is our K-6. This is intermediate, junior high. And then our 9th grade campus locations. 10 through 12 campuses, and then finally our 9 through 12 campuses.
Just going back to the junior high, I noticed we added the associate principal. We did move forward with that. Is that the first time?
Yeah, it'll be the first time we've had that, so that's gonna pay dividends in, I think, two ways. One of the things you see in here is, you know, we've really tried to fund, the ESSER positions, especially those that had direct impact on either instruction and catching kids up, or that were involved in like behavior things to not lose the discipline piece of what these were. So I think the associate principal will play a key role in helping with discipline, but also that position, I think, helps us with the pipeline of future principals, because we've not had that. Other districts in our area have had that as a position as well. We have those at high schools. It helps us to, you know, it gives one more step so people don't get
Oh, I agree.
antsy and leave us, right? So we can, gives us a spot. That specifically this year, that is an additional administrator for our biggest junior highs. So McCullough, York, is everybody but Irons and Pete, is that correct? Irons and Pete are the two smallest, so that they're getting an associate position, but they will be converting one of their current assistants into an associate. But for the bigger junior highs, it's actually an additional person to help. So it'll be good.
So the smaller are losing an assistant position.
They're gaining an associate title, but that associate on those two campuses will still also have to carry the duties of the assistant principal. And so an alpha group, right? They'll still carry an alpha group. They'll have the associate title, but they'll carry an alpha group.
All right, so once we go through that allocation process, this is kind of the summary of where we are today. This information is preliminary as we are still refining allocations. Additions to support growth and provide targeted support at our campus level. We're adding 437.3 FTEs for a total cost of $28.4 million. Additional district support of 107 FTEs for a total cost of $6.3 million. Brings us to total additions of 544.3 FTEs at a cost of $34.7 million. A couple items to note that contributed to this large increase. You'll see on the right the box. We did change our staffing ratios at the elementary K through 4 level, brought them down from 23:1 to a 22:1 student to teacher ratio. As was mentioned earlier, we made staffing adjustments to be able to absorb those ESSER positions into the general fund. We have provided additional special ed support, additional campus support. We just talked about the associate principals, some counselor changes that we made in the formulas. And then we are opening 2 new campuses. And I would point out the bottom part on the district support, this does include 27 additional district level positions to support special ed. The campus numbers at the top also include 35 special education teaching units and 30 special education paraprofessional units, some of which will be used to support the additional 18 behavioral units that we will be adding next year. Also 46 auxiliary positions at the bottom. This would include bus drivers for additional routes, custodians for new facilities, and additional maintenance staff. We are also adding 5 additional diagnosticians that will be funded out of IDEA B. That is not reflected on this chart. And then in addition to what you see here, we also have various federal programs that total roughly $35 million, comprised of 350 positions to support various programs throughout the district. And then another important thing to note is that we do have spending requirements related to special program funding received from the state, such as bilingual, CTE, dyslexia, etc. And we more than exceed those thresholds in all programs. For example, for fiscal year 21-22, our spending for dyslexia services was 182% of what the state provided us in dyslexia funding.
Ms. Garza?
Yes.
Did you say that the ESSER positions are built into this?
They are. Correct. That's $16 million, roughly 225 FTEs
Oh, I see down here.
are
And then-
included in this 544.
Okay, and then also the staffing change, 22:1, what was it prior to that?
It was 23:1
Okay.
at grades K through 4.
And what is the cost of that? Is that
That was roughly,
$3 million.
we have a slide.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's coming.
So
There you
these are some of the notable staffing changes that we made. As was mentioned, the ratio change at grades 1 through 4, we were at 23:1, is now 22:1. That was a cost of $3 million. We did provide each campus with 2 instructional coaches to support reading and math. That was at a net cost of $4.5 million. And then the ratio changes that we talked about with the campus administrators and counselors, 3.2 million and 1.5. And then, as was mentioned on the previous slide, all of the special ed support was a total of $5 million, including teachers and the district support staff.
So Ms. Garza, the ratios aren't necessarily teacher to student ratios, that's staff to student, is that right?
Well, all of the ratios are built on student enrollment. So, for instance, the principal and assistant principal, not the principal, but the assistant principal is based on student enrollment at a campus. So, for instance, at the junior high, and I'm not positive on these numbers, but if the enrollment exceeded 1,100, let's say, they get a third principal. If it exceeds 850, they get a second assistant principal. So all of it's driven by student enrollment.
So the
22 to 1, what you're seeing, that is teacher. That is student to teacher only.
Correct.
Correct. And, you know, you could probably analyze this later, but like the ratio from 23 to 1 to 22 to 1, it's a cost of $3 million in the front end of the budget. I don't think it will actually cost us that much. What this really does is it generates additional teacher units up front so that principals can hire these teachers today. Mm-hmm. What was happening to us when we were funding at 23 to 1 is we would get into September, October. Now all of a sudden we have 27 kids and we need to hire a teacher, and into the, 7-8 years ago, we could probably find one. Today, you can't find one. And so by bumping this down, it creates additional teaching units that are out there now and in principals' hands so they can hire. So we probably won't end up with that many more teachers. We're just going to end up with hiring them sooner.
And our campuses can handle like the additional classes.
Well,
I mean, they're
from
busting
20,
at the seams
yeah, but
already.
22 to 1 is always our goal anyway in a classroom. So if we have space for all of the teachers, Mr. McCord, is that correct? Within your portable plan, like all the teachers built into this budget will have a space either in the building or in a portable?
As of today, we're good, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Never know about tomorrow, but today.
Okay, so what else are there any other big ticket items? Because this is like 40% of the 13
Well,
million.
16
the
million is
16
ESSER.
million ESSER, and then just normal growth. These are just formula changes that are being reflected here, all the normal growth for teachers as well.
Yeah, we have the opening of 2 new schools,
Okay,
and then just the teachers, and staff
3,500
needed
new
for
students.
2,600 new students.
thank you.
So this is our projected expenditure budget increase for 2023, 2024. As you will see, once again, we're waiting on the legislature, so we don't have a line item in there yet for our salary increase. The additional personnel for growth for 23, 24, as Ms. Garza just demonstrated to us, is $34.7 million. The Reading Academy stipends, the summer school pay, and teacher pipeline, that is all funding that's coming out of ESSER back into the general fund, $2.1 million. We have built in our own inflation adjustment into our budget for $3.5 million. An increase, again, for portable building expenditures of $3 million. And just so y'all know, Mr. McCord has already let me know we're probably a little short, for that year. So we might be coming back with that one. Increased software cost next year for $1 million. Other expenses, that is new utilities for our 2 new schools, fuel for our additional bus routes, insurance, and then supplies for our new students and our new schools. And then TRS on behalf, this is the other half of our accounting entry. On the expenditure side, $1.75 million for total estimated expenditure increase of $48.35 million. Yes, ma'am?
Question, where are paras in this? The line, oh, okay.
Yeah, paraprofessionals, if you look, third line down, paraprofessionals,
Okay, great.
Actually 74.
yeah,
But
74
these
and
are
a half.
just new,
And they're formula driven just like the teachers
Yeah,
are. So
yeah, they're part of the formulas.
but this does not consider any salary increases.
At the current
Right.
time, it does not.
That is quite a number of positions, right?
Yes.
Mhm. So part of that calculation was we could build in the raise earlier in this process But that would mean that we would be holding back a lot of positions. So then when let's say the legislature comes through in June and finalizes a budget, and then let's say we are going to get $20 million more dollars. If we released all those positions in June, we would never be able to hire these people. We'd never be able to hire the people to fill the spots. It would be too late. So we took the approach of the positions early, so that now we've covered all the ESSER, we've covered all the positions of need, we've filled the formulas. So any additional money that comes from the state, you would have the ability to say, apply all of it to a raise.
Now,
Like it's,
would the new ESSER positions be up for that
yes,
increase?
yes,
So that's
they would,
additional.
yes, ma'am.
So we don't know of any of the raises until June.
Or,
At all.
I'm hopeful in June, but the legislature in House Bill 3, they took the privilege of giving raises to our employees as part of their funding formula in House Bill 3. They did not build any mechanism into that for us to be able to apply raises. I do remind them of that often, that, hey, like, you have this, you get the privilege of doing it, so they have to do it.
So don't forget about it.
They can't forget, and that's why, like, that idea of giving 6,000 to some and 2,000 to other, that's,
Right. So if they don't do it,
then we are going to be,
we have to.
we're going to, it will go back to, looking like at next year, it would go back to thinking about if that bond passed and you had $30 million, perhaps you would do retention stipend. The benefit of retention stipends is they don't obligate you to the future, right? So that's why they're a nice thing. And then, the potential Vader or if we had to get moving
But the
forward.
bond doesn't have anything to do with the teacher raises. So,
No.
It doesn't, but if no money comes into this, and we don't have money right now for a retention stipend, we have no mechanism right now to increase their pay. They would get exactly what they got next year. And you don't have capacity presently in your fund balance. That's the only discretionary money you have is your fund balance. You don't have any capacity there to do a retention stipend at all. If that bond passed and that $30 million came back to the fund balance, that would be discretionary money that you all could choose to use. But you would have to use it, I would caution you to say you would need to use it as one-time money, because it's not going to be, it's not going to replenish. So it'd need to be retention stipend and not salary.
So that brings me back to questions from, I believe, December,
Uh-huh.
because that 30 million still keeps haunting me.
Yes.
We have now tied that somehow to a bond.
No.
Because typically,
Yes,
let me
yes,
finish.
yes.
Typically, that money would be in our general operating, so we could have used that, but we took it out and then
To buy
took it
land.
back.
To buy land.
Yes, we used it to buy land.
Right, but typically we wouldn't have done that, because years prior, we had never.
Correct.
That had never been done, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But now, because of that decision, that 30 million that could have before taken out,
Mhm.
been sitting in that fund, never touched, could have been used for teacher raises. So now
Not-
we
if
are
I may.
But not,
essentially
if I may.
turning it in that circle.
Part of that, I think that's a logical explanation, but part of the problem was the last bond we had contingency money built in there that we were unable to get past. So we had to come back with another bond and strip it all out. And then the cost went up, and the $30 million contingency is just in case, because the cost has gone up so much, and our bond previous was so thin. Fortunately, we were fortunate enough to have money sitting aside, and there was actually a motion to pull $16 million out to go towards our budget in our last budget, and we decided not to do that. Thank goodness we didn't do that, so we had the money here, which we're hoping will go back. But there's a lot of moving parts to that. So we tried in
You're
our.
saying it was pulled for land purchase.
It was,
now
absolutely.
we're-
But you do understand why,
Right.
It's because it wasn't there, that we didn't have the money
To buy the land.
Right.
from the other bond. Typically, you put contingency money in a bond,
Right, but
like
that
we're
didn't
doing.
happen. I do understand
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So y'all made a decision to.
Correct.
put that money.
And part of it's like what we talked about earlier, like those 3 pieces of land in Woodson's. If we had not bought them when we bought them, they were not going to be available to us.
Right,
Like
and
they
and
were,
I do get all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that was.
but it would not be available for teacher salary. it could be available for retention stipend, because, and that key distinguishing point there is because salary is a repeating factor in the budget, so you can't use one-time money for salary. So it would absolutely be available for a potential retention stipend, but it would not be available for salary. Once again, if the bond passes, you would once again have access to that money to be able to do a retention stipend next school year.
But my point is, had it never.
Correct. Yes.
Hypothetically speaking, had it never been removed, we wouldn't even be discussing what it could be used for, because it would have never.
You would have the option.
Yeah.
You would still have the
Our
option of
budget would
using it
still
for
look the
retention
same.
stipend if you wanted, but you may not
We would
have.
more money
It'd be yes, but we would not have land for
Right.
8 of the
I just
schools.
want to keep pointing that out.
Yeah,
because I'm
indeed.
trying to wrap my
No,
mind
no doubt about it.
Yep.
Absolutely. But the salary piece is always difficult.
That's a
but-
hard one. So
because it
we're
repeats.
We're actually putting gas on that
And-
fire. I think,
Yes.
by-
Just want to clarify something you said. You said could not be used, but it could be used. It's just not advisable to use non-repeating money for a salary.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Yeah, I would
okay.
absolutely not. I
I
mean,
just-
if you
I just wanna
took
make
20
that
million out and
distinction.
because you were committing
Yeah.
yourself to spending that again in the future if you
Of
don't have
course,
it available.
but
yeah.
honestly, this is, I understand the use of retention stipend. I do understand the use of bonuses, and I understand it's a great mechanism to be able to increase salary in the short term and not commit yourself to the long term. Totally get it. But also, as you know, as an employee, right, that is not as valuable as getting salary increases, because you miss out on the compounding effect of your salary increases. So I think we also need to be mindful of those things too, that while it makes fiscal sense, it's not always the best thing to do for employees. But now we're in a really difficult situation where we don't even have money to do that retention stipend, that short-term increase for employees. So I'm a little concerned.
And I'm concerned.
We are too.
Well,
Yeah.
We are too.
I think that the constant not having money for the increase, the pay increase, just a standard pay increase, toys with emotions, and again, just that security of having that gradual increase over the life of your career.
Yes.
So I
Agreed.
hate to see that ever jeopardized, and I feel like that's exactly what we've done.
How much do
I agree. Unfortunately, it's like this is another one of those things that we don't control. Right? It's House Bill 3's.
But by taking
No.
that money out, using it, and I know it was a necessity at the time, and the decision was made.
Well, the only way that we would be using that money now, and you all could do this, it'd be your decision. But like, let's say if you wanted to do a salary increase out of fund balance, then you would be adopting a deficit budget.
Yeah, you don't
we
wanna
have
do
never
that.
adopted a deficit budget
No,
in our
I-
history,
I
but
just-
that's what that would be.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the original discussion
Right.
where the money was moved, so had it just been left there, we would have.
But
It's
that's
not
what,
there,
but
though.
that's what we're saying is if the $30 million was in the fund balance and we pull it out for salary, you're creating a deficit because
Yeah.
it's not coming out of a budget,
It's
it's
not
coming out of a
repeating.
savings account. You
Right,
don't
but
want to do that.
But it was there for the
For a salary,
for salary increases.
but you wouldn't want to, that's what I'm saying. I don't think companies
Would
ever.
it have been a deficit?
Yes.
if you-
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
because you
Yes.
would have
Yes.
to repeat it.
Because our
There's
expenditures
no
would have
offsetting
exceeded
revenue
our
with that.
But it's
revenue.
an
Do
annual.
you remember the numbers? Like how much was it was 10 million for retention stipend
I've got,
last year?
those are our
Yeah,
next,
it's coming.
those are our
Okay,
next
and
slides.
then, and I don't know if you have this, but, for the salary increase that we did last year, it was
coming.
16
Yeah, we've
million?
got
Oh,
those
you have
coming
this,
up.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on, are you good though?
Yeah.
I think this will help, and then I
Okay.
might have some.
Okay.
So although we don't have that line filled out in our budget,
Yeah.
we have been working
Okay.
on raises
Thank
for
you.
our teachers
Thank
and
you.
Yeah,
employees
we
in
anticipate,
anticipation.
to be clear, we anticipate there being a raise.
So
We're just still waiting on Austin to give us the money to do it. So here's the numbers, what they would look like, but
So-
we're still working as if that's coming.
So we have been working with TASB and their compensation group to come up with some employee raise scenarios. So we had our meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and they provided us their scenarios, but we wanted to present to the board here what a 2% raise would cost, all the way down to a 5%. So you can see a 2% raise is about $11.5 million, all the way to a 5% raise. Now, this includes all employees.
Yeah.
Would be about $24.4
And
million.
this is just a standard 5%?
This is just standard,
All right.
yes, standard raise.
But the study should have different.
There will be
There'll be
targeted,
targeted.
yeah, there
And
will be
we-
targeted adjustments within the pay plan, yes, ma'am.
What's the highest we've ever done as a district annual?
3.5,
Yeah,
I think.
I remember
Four, maybe?
Four, maybe?
Oh,
Yeah,
What's the average?
years ago.
Average is like 2.5.
Yeah, two and a half.
Probably two and a half.
Not
Yeah.
too.
When will we get
There's been some years that,
When will y'all
you know.
present the
Yeah, which
results
is
of the
Yeah.
compensation study?
When we have some funds to.
No, like the one,
Yes, but we have them, and I can send them to you all.
Okay.
But we have not asked TASB to present until we have
Until we have
funds to
funding.
fund it. We don't have the funds yet to fund it, but we have the study we can send you.
okay.
and then the question about how much does the retention
Mhm.
stipend cost? We traditionally, the last few years, given a $1,500 retention stipend, $500 in the fall, $1,000 in the spring, and that's about a cost of $13.25 million.
So your 48 mil a while ago does not include the $1,500 stipend or?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
And this stipend would include all the additional 300-ish?
Yes, ma'am, that is all employees.
I'm sorry, the additional 300 what?
The new
Position.
positions.
The new
Yes,
position.
they
Yeah,
would be
it would
included.
include all positions. So this is just a quick worksheet of our preliminary budget. Once again, our total estimated revenue increase is $48.35 million. Our estimated total revenue would be $671.65 million. We just talked about all the expenditures, so our estimated expenditure increase would be $48.35 million, giving us an estimated total expenditure increase of $671.65. So currently, without any raise taken into account, we do have a balanced budget. So as Dr. Knoll said, any additional funding coming from the state, it'll be at your leisure to approve that and direct us to put that all towards employee raises.
Can you just go back to that?
Which one?
The percentage one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hold on, I didn't write down my numbers.
And you mentioned this comes from TASB. What is the basis?
Well, we just work with TASB in the compensation study, what they do for us, and they will give y'all a full presentation. But what they do is they go out and they survey the market, our competing school districts in our area. They look at the market, and this is across our whole pay plan, from custodians all the way to teachers to principals to CFOs and superintendents, and look at those and make sure that we're within the boundaries of our pay plans. And then they look at other school districts and say, hey, what are they doing? Make sure that our compensation plan is competitive.
So we give them the targets. So we would tell them, like we want to be at within 98% of the market. Whatever our goal is. We don't usually shoot to be the very top of the market. We want to be competitive with the market. So we give them, where we want to be. And then what will happen is eventually when we get money, you all will come back and you may say, you know what, I want to see a 2.5% raise for professional staff and a 4% raise for paraprofessionals. What is the cost of that? We assume that their actuaries do all that math. They'll come back and be able to show you a total cost, and we can show you the difference between 2.5 or 3%, and then how it would work on either side. So we'll be able to give you a lot of that data when we get to a point where we can make a decision on it. We'll be able to share that with you. But I'll send you a copy. I have a copy of the full study. I'll send it in my update. so
I
you can
would
see it.
like to see what they're seeing as far as for paraprofessionals. Specifically.
And I'm assuming we pay them for this. We pay TASB for doing this for us.
Yes, it's part of our HR services with them.
Now
So-
switching gears.
Yeah, so
we're through our general fund budget. Now we're going to look at our benefit plan design, and this is another aspect of the budget process that we find very important. And I'm happy to present this today because we're able to present the benefit plan design without any increases to our premiums or any changes to our plan design. So I wanted to state that.
And that's
straight off the top.
significant going back to the last conversation, because we've had years that we've given a raise and our health premiums have gone up more than the raise.
Yes.
And so it's been really a negative. So we are starting here tonight without that piece. So when we are able to give the raise, we're really going to give a raise, which is good.
That's important.
Yes. So
So we're quickly going to look at our current plan performance. Ms. Garza has kept y'all abreast of that each month, and then our fund balance and our self-funded insurance. Then we're going to look at our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan design, the three plans we have, the Blue Premier, Blue Essentials, and Blue Choice, our recommended benefit plan design, and then our premium calculations. So just taking a look at our fund balance and our self-funded insurance is very strong. We're sitting at about $6.2 million at the end of last year. We do anticipate that to increase this year. If we look at our current year plan performance, through February, our total revenues are about $26.6 million. Now, just so y'all know, this is on a cash basis program here. Total expenses is $24.8 million. So right now our revenues are over our expenses by about $1.8 million. So we're in very good standing moving forward into the summer months, which are typically higher expenditure months for the plan, but we're in very good position for the plan. So now looking at our benefits plan design, I would like to say that working with Gallagher and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then the decision that the board made last month to make the change on our PBM and the savings that we saved moving from the current PBM to Blue Cross Blue Shield, that saved us a little over $2 million. You can see that change has allowed us to not have any benefits plan design. So you can see our Blue Cross Blue Shield, the plan called Blue Essentials, that's actually in the pink column. There's no plan changes there, or in the Blue Premier, which is primarily Memorial Hermann, and then the last plan on the far right is our high deductible plan. And so recommended premiums, once again, we're recommending our premiums stay the same for each of our plans. Through the actuaries at Gallagher and with working with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they did recommend a 0.7% increase, which equates to about $365,000. But we felt that the way the plan is performing, and then also with our substantial fund balance we have in the plan, it was best that we stay status quo with our premium. So we feel really good about our position with our plan. I will be bringing this agenda item to the board in April for y'all's approval of our benefit plan design and our premium contributions.
All right.
So what's next in the budget process? We need to finalize our revenue. We'll be looking at our state funding, once again monitoring the legislative session. We still have a long way to go. Taking a look at our tax rate, our local assessed values, finalizing our expenditures, once again working with our additional personnel, our compensation recommendations, and then our campus and departmental expenditure needs. Future board meetings, public hearings, and budget approval. We do have a board workshop on the budget for May 2nd if necessary. It really depends on what the legislature does in the next month. So if there's nothing new to report, we won't have that one, but we will have the one on June 6th. Hopefully the legislative session ends when it's supposed to and there's no special session. We can come to that board workshop and have y'all a pretty substantial completed budget for y'all at that board workshop. July 12th, we'll present to the district level planning and decision-making committee. We will present the budget to them. They will make a recommendation to recommend the budget to the board, and we will bring that to the July 18th board meeting. At that meeting, it will allow the board to make any adjustments they want to before we move into our public hearings in August. So August 1st, we'll have our first public hearing on the budget and tax rate. August 15th, we'll have our second public hearing on the budget and tax rate, and then at that meeting, we will ask the board to adopt the budget and then the tax rate at that time.
August is going to be busy.
mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. What does it look like to how to be more streamlined with like the no new revenue rate versus the tax rate that we're currently going with?
The no new now we haven't got our values in yet, but the no new tax revenue rate. Number one, we'd lose all our golden pennies. So that is a substantial amount of money that we would lose, because, you know, that's $9 million a penny. So that's, you know,
About
that's
12
40,
now with
that's
the increased
$45
rate.
million that would come right off the top, going to that no new revenue rate. So right there is a deterrent in going to that. Really, it's just the lost revenue that the district was seeing, as we just discussed. You know, the
That term
challenges
doesn't
that we do
apply.
have
Yeah.
in our budget just kind of.
And that term doesn't apply to us like it applies to the county, or because of the funding formula is different. So it is very different.
We get penalized even further within the state funding formula when we start dropping. Not only do we get penalized because we lose the tax revenue, the funding formula has mechanisms within the tiered system. There's tier 1, that is just your basic allotment, you know, for your employees. But in the tier 2, it takes into account your tax effort. So if we don't show appropriate tax effort, we get penalized additionally. Not only would we lose the golden penny, we would also start losing fractions of pennies within the tier 2 system. So it would actually be greater than the $45 million we would anticipate.
Well, the 45 million, you said, is just the golden penny. That's not.
That's just straight up. That's just the
straight
effect of the
up. There's probably
losing.
another.
That's not the copper?
No, that's not.
We don't access
we
any
don't have
copper,
any
but
copper.
we
We don't
would
have any
lose the
copper
5 golden
specifically.
pennies we have and the benefits that come with them.
But that also is another $20 million from our own personal tax.
And then
revenues. So you're talking about a $65 to $68 million.
Well,
The
the
45
million
keeps that.
includes
It includes
all
that
of that.
number.
It does keep- okay.
But you are right. The additional fractional losses that we would see in the tier 2 funding would probably be $10+ million loss in there. We've calculated that number. I don't remember what it is, but it is substantial.
Those pennies are actually worth more than 11 million now with the increased yield to
Yeah.
tier 2 yield. So it'd be
Big
more in the
60.
$55 million range.
There have been some times that we've been able to do that, the no net revenue. We've had that happen 4 years ago, I guess, something like that.
We had the, not the no net revenue, but the,
Yeah, it just didn't.
The no new net revenue has, you know, really.
I may be using the wrong terminology,
Yeah.
but I know that we had our tax rate set where it was lower and it did not increase
Wow.
the actual dollar
and
amount.
I would expect,
The terminology now is the
Yeah.
voter-approved tax
Yeah.
rate.
hopefully.
No new tax revenue, voter-approved tax rate.
I would expect that with the amount of compression that we're gonna see, that our community should see a nice decrease in their tax bill. Because, I mean, like I said, just the current
Yeah, the
law
Senate-
is
the
a 5-cent decrease.
The Senate would be additional 7 cents,
Yeah.
and the House's would be an additional 15 cents. So if the House passes, it'll be 20-cent tax rate decrease.
That'd be awesome.
On top of what we, you know, currently have. So
That'd be great.
Mr. Rice, do you have, is there a link or a source for that formula you could send to us, the entire board, just so we could see that, the
On the-
state's formula?
Sure.
Is there a good, resource? for-
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yes.
I'm sure.
The
It's
statute.
super complex, but yes.
I'll
wanna
be
take
happy
it
to
out
send that,
myself,
and then and then you'll want to come
Yeah.
visit me.
Yeah. But if you could
So,
do that
so
to all of us.
I will be happy to,
That'd be
yeah.
Just real quick, the 105 that you showed at the beginning, I think, 105 something, that was including the impact from the bond if it passed,
No.
or no?
No.
No.
Okay.
Can't do that. You can't set a tax rate
Yeah.
on the what if.
We're not
I would-
setting it, this
No.
is just
But
informational.
they-
I just
Right,
wanted to know
right.
what's included in there.
No,
Um,
it's
Current law.
Oh,
Okay.
current obligation.
And then,
Yeah.
do you know for the Vader, like, is it the same deadline to decide to call that too
Yes.
as the bond? For the August 21st? Okay, on the Vader, all right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. This is
Thank
a lot
y'all.
of work
Good
and
stuff,
all
y'all.
this. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
Push page numbers on this, on your printout.
Sure.
Next time. I dropped it and it was like, oh my God.
Game over.
Oh, they got the PDF version. Okay.
Oh, it's on, sorry.
Yeah. Y'all have the.
It's 40 pages and
yeah.
it just went like all over the
Blew
place.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will make sure y'all get to have a page numbers next time.
Do y'all need like a 3-minute break, or do we want to keep rolling? Let's roll. Let's roll.
I just want to say thank you, Ms. Garza and Mr. Rice. I know it's like a lot of effort behind like a single number is like a lot of other numbers and a lot of time and effort, and so appreciate you all your work and effort in putting that together. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to transition now into just an update on our bond planning committee, and much like what we talked about last time, this is going to be pretty brief. Everything that has been presented to our bond planning committee is on the website. It's all public. Everybody can access it. You can access it. Anybody can access it. So there's nothing that we're presenting tonight that is not fully available to the community. And certainly we've had a few great meetings since the last time we were here. I want to say thank you to Ms. Dungan, came out and joined us at our meeting at Oak Ridge High. I think she just had to come check it out, make sure it was still looking good since her husband left.
Tour bus, yes.
Yeah, and see a bus, yes. And then Mrs. Nelson joined us at our last meeting at Jet, so that we appreciate y'all coming out and doing that. And people always appreciate seeing you and being a part of the process. So
It's exciting to see it all take place. A to Z, all the community.
it's a big deal. Like it's the amount of work that, and I'll give all the credit to Sarah and then Easy and Mr. McCord. Every meeting is a different group of people that are making it happen. But Sarah's the constant, and her team. Every time they are the ones.
Great job.
So
Good job.
they're awesome. So let's we'll try to run through this pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, good evening, Mr. Hubert, Board, Dr. Knoll. Let's talk about our bond planning committee. So I was here last month with sorted experts, and we covered the first 4 meetings. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about 5 through 7. Again, like Dr. Knoll mentioned, we are working to be as transparent as possible. We have everything up on our website, and communication is also a big part of this process. Since we last spoke, we have added a school tours element to this. We have received requests from several committee members, and then we found that offering up a couple of additional sites might be of interest. So this week, committee members will be receiving a link to a Sign Up Genius, where they can sign up to go and tour some of the schools that might have projects affiliated with them in the bond, or additional schools, so that they could just understand what a full high school feels like, or what lunchtime is like. So we're really excited to offer that to them. So the last meeting that we talked about was on March 2nd. So then we went to March 9th with safety and security, and this was the one where we had a little bit of fun. We went to Oak Ridge High School so that the community could see that facility. But the big topic of the night, or one of the big ones, was transportation needs. So Mr. McCord.
Did y'all go out to the bathroom?
We showed them pictures. We did not go out.
And I did bring pictures to show you tonight, but
for the sake of time,
we cut them from the presentation.
Yes. So the first thing I would say is, from the operations standpoint, throughout these meetings, we have given a lot of information to the people. And the bond planning committee, if they're watching on the internet tonight or wherever they are, I want to thank them and commend them, because they keep coming, they keep showing up, and it's a lot. And so I appreciate them. And so we're going to start out talking about transportation. And just to get the overview of the department, just some things worth noting is these are based on 2021, 2022 numbers. But we have a really large student population. We have a really large amount of distance that we drive every day for buses. In fact, it's 348 square miles. As far as total annual miles driven, it's over 6.4 million. We have the 3rd highest percentage of enrollment students transported. It's 55%. So the transportation department is really important to the students, but also the families of Conroe ISD and getting kids to and from school. We are also really effort to be efficient with what we do. And so based on 21-22, which are the most recent numbers we have, we were 3rd and 2nd in efficiency per mile. And all these numbers are among the 24 largest enrollment districts in the state of Texas. So just to give you an overview of the department, the bus purchase history since 2003. We've got good records since 2003, and we work hard to use grants. And usually what will happen with a grant is we'll get a bus through a grant, and then we will, as part of the grant, we'll send back a bus of a certain age or older as part of the grant. That's kind of the way it works. So we've acquired a large part of our fleet through grants, and that's a desired way and outcome to do it if we possibly can. Through bonds and purchases, you can see about 338. And then a couple of years ago, we really efforted to acquire quite a few used buses, and it was really important. And it was really important, and I'll show you in just a second why, is because with the supply chain, acquiring buses is acquiring a long time to get it done. So as part of those used department purchase buses, air conditioning is a really big deal. It's a big deal with our students, our parents and guardians let us know, and our drivers let us know. And attracting and retaining drivers is tantamount to running the department. So all these things work together collectively, and so this will give you a look at ordering right here. And what I have some breaking news tonight, if you're watching or if you're here, in that you can see the bus purchase current timeline. And the buses that we've ordered, these are new buses. Of course, they have seat belts and 77 passenger or 71 passengers. If you look at these, we have 12 buses that have just arrived in the last couple of days. So these buses date back to, think where you were in October of 2021. That's when the bus purchase was first done. You see we have a timeline for other purchases to come in. So those are important. We look forward to those new buses. It gives us a vehicle that we can count on, so it's a big deal. As far as the buses themselves, just like everything else that you look at in life, the prices keep going up. So our last bid, which was in September of 2022, for a 77-passenger bus is $131,000. For a special needs bus, a 47-passenger bus, you're looking at a little over $118,000. I think this chart tells a lot of the tale if you look at it, and really it reads right to left. If you can go back in time, the ones in red, well, let me back up. It's important to note the expected life expectancy of a school bus is 12 to 15 years. I will tell you that we drive our buses hard. Our buses, we have a 3-tier bus system. So we expect a lot out of our buses. So I'm not saying those are dog years, but I'm saying that those years are hard years. And of those years, you can see from 2000 to 2007, 12 to 15 years is the expected life expectancy of a bus. So those are buses by number going vertically on the right side in red, buses that are over that life expectancy. So those buses were acquired from think where you were on January 1st, 2000 for Y2K, all the way through the first sale of an iPhone in 2007. Those buses were purchased and acquired or produced in that time zone, so that time span. So you can see right now over a third of our buses exceed that 12 to 15 year life expectancy. And then you can see the fall off chart really going right to left of where we will go in the future with the fleet age of our buses. And so going forward, it's important to have places to park buses. So these are the costs that we presented to the bond planning committee for having somewhere to park the buses. Now, in full disclosure, when we acquire a bus, many times we'll be able to auction off or remove another bus, especially those that are around 2000, 2001. These show you the cost for bus parking expansion for places to park potentially acquired buses. Going top to bottom, you can see Conroe Transportation Center, Oak Ridge Transportation Center, and the East County Transportation Center. So those would give us numbers from top to bottom from 40 parking spaces, 80 parking spaces at Oak Ridge, and potentially 100 parking spaces at where it's really exploding quickly at East County Transportation Center. So those are places to park the buses. Ironically, it really costs more to park the buses than it does to acquire the buses. On the positive side, you can build the parking spaces faster than you can acquire a bus. So I'm not sure what the takeaway is there, but it is what it is. So a takeaway for our bus fleet is that right now, over a third of our bus fleet is older than its life expectancy, while just approaching 2/3 of our bus fleet will be on the upper end of its life expectancy in the next 4 years. So a special kudos. I always try to give a shout out to them. Our repair team, our shop teams, our maintenance teams, they work hard. And they also do it while many times they're also driving a bus. I will tell you that on acquiring bus drivers, we're at a better place than we've been in 4 years. We're not where we want to be, but we're at a better place. As far as attendance, this week, Sam, we've had perhaps the best attendance we've had in 4 years. So there are some things to be excited about. So those are some key takeaways for buses. I want to transition to talking about safety and security. I don't have a lot of fancy graphics for safety and security. What I would tell you is that the committee has shown and they've expressed that safety and security is important to them. And from the safety and security aspect, there's a lot of things that can be purchased with safety and security funds through a bond. And really that would be recommended probably through the district level safety and security committee. It'd be approved by you, and then ultimately if the bond's approved by the voters. But we have a lot of flexibility in safety and security. Right now it's really important. It's always really important. And Dr. Knoll, I think you would chime in, the committee has expressed it's important to them. We haven't come with a figure yet.
Yeah,
It's important.
so their challenge was not to determine what the money will be spent on in safety and security. The bond committee's job is simply to put a number.
Allocate.
Yeah, they'll just put a number, and then it'll be, like I said, the safety committee and all those will actually figure out how we spend it. So they're working through, and I'll wrap up tonight by talking to you about how they're placing numbers in different categories. Explain that.
But to come up with a number, they need ideas. of
Yeah, so
what-
we've shown them ideas. They know how much was in the last bond,
Okay.
the work we did in the last bond with that amount of money. They've seen all of that. So and then we've given them some kind of bumpers so we'll talk about that in a few.
So in the master plan category, Oak Ridge High School is really at the tip of the spear there. We are finishing up phase 1 of the Oak Ridge High School master plan renovation. That will be done in July, at the end of July. And the icing on the cake will be, from a safety standpoint and an excitement standpoint for that community, and for me personally, the road that will circle around and encompass Oak Ridge High School.
Yeah.
That is going to be a great day for Oak Ridge High School. And it's going to be a great day for Conroe ISD. So I'm excited about that, but we've moved the front entrance, a lot of infrastructure work, CTE, a lot going on at Oak Ridge High School with phase 1. These are phase 2 and phase 3. And Dr. Knoll will talk to you about where they are. These are the dollar values for phase 2 and for phase 3, and these have been presented to the board, and I think he will speak to that here momentarily. Moving on, talking about physical infrastructure and technology infrastructure. When I talk about physical infrastructure, I need to talk about what it is, but it's almost easier at times to define by what it is not. And when you talk about physical infrastructure for the buildings, you're talking about major systems. Infrastructure as far as building restoration, system replacements, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning and heating and roofing, major systems. It's not routine things such as services or oil changes or replacement of minor parts. It is infrastructure. It is big. It's what makes the building breathe, work, and operate for children and staff. We have a lot of components that make up infrastructure, and I'm going to move through this quickly. It's just a snippet. Chillers, air-conditioned, refrigerated air, cooled air in the buildings is really important to our students and staff. As I made a remark at the last bond planning committee, when it's not working appropriately, we have a lot of digital systems that will tell us it's not, but we'll get a lot of feedback from staff that it's not working. But right now, we have right at a quarter of the chillers that we have in our district exceed their life expectancy, and you can see the fall-off chart going top to bottom. Boilers providing hot water and heated air when needed, we're approaching 50% of our boilers are operating beyond their life expectancy. Air handlers. Air handlers are important because what they do is they push the air. Air moves. And the air handlers, we're right at a quarter of our air handlers are operating beyond their life expectancy. Kitchen coolers. Child nutrition, they do a great job. Over half of our kitchen coolers right now are operating beyond their life expectancy. For example, for a cooler, that is 10 years. Over half of our kitchen freezers are operating beyond their life expectancy. You can see the fall-off chart going top to bottom, with 2027 looking at approaching 75%. Roofs are really important. We have roof sections, and we have 198 roof sections. Right at a quarter of those are operating beyond their life expectancy. We will work hard to maintain them. The integrity of the roof is key for everything underneath it, but you can see where we are on roof sections. The district infrastructure total need that was given to the bond planning committee was $222 million. And I can tell you it's important, and it's important to make the buildings work for our kids and our staff and really our parents indirectly. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Knoll will probably speak to that momentarily. I want to talk about technology infrastructure. And this is a great slide because what this does, this gives you a look at everything that has to happen and all the hardware that's involved from the moment that I decide I want to research what is the capital of Indiana until I get the answer, which is Indianapolis. But if you look at it, this does not show everything that occurs at our internet provider. These are just devices we have. But what I really want to emphasize is that the technology is really critical in the learning at school. It's not like when I graduated from 1985 from Atlanta High School. It's changed dramatically. But what I will also say, and we'll get to a point in a moment, is that we talk a lot about safety, and the physical safety of our students and our staff is critical. But that's the most important thing. But right behind it, besides the functionality and allowing people to do their jobs and children to learn, is that the needed technology infrastructure is critical for providing and protecting the data safety and security of our students and our staff. And it really is combined from two different aspects, and that is our daily personnel and technology working to monitor systems and stay ahead of bad guys that would try to intrude and infiltrate our system. But it's also the technology that we have, unfortunately, just like your iPhone or my iPhone or eggs, milk, butter, cheese, they age out over time. And they're no longer supported or they're no longer under warranty. And we work hard to stay ahead of everything as far as expiration and people that would try to do us harm. But I'm telling you, it's a battle. And you need the infrastructure. We presented what our needs were just under $70 million at $69 million. Here is a year-by-year breakdown. And this is just technology, infrastructure, and equipment. This does not include technology devices such as iPads or Chromebooks or things of that nature.
I have a question, because earlier this year, we did vote on I think it was a federal grant, or federal dollars that we get. What do we get annually for our technology from federal dollars? Is that?
Well, I'll tell you what I know, and I'll wait for Mr. Rice or Mr. McClarity to give me the answer, but I know we had $5 million from the previous bond.
Okay. I just want to have this.
Yeah, and we had a little over $1 million that we get supplemented from the general fund. But
Talking
Mr. McClarity?
E-rate.
Yeah, you're talking about E-rate?
What's
Yeah.
it called?
E-rate?
E-rate.
Program?
E-rate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we go in, we're able to replace some switches and wireless infrastructure and things. We get from that program to get some of the money back from the reset.
Okay, so what annually, a dollar amount?
Would you mind sitting in the mic so that people?
Here you go, Terry.
No, you speak.
We can hear you, but the people online.
Yeah.
I usually get the mic to this guy. He's a lot funnier than I am. This last year, it was a little over 5 million what we did, but in previous years, it was about 3.5, but it's just, all our costs went up on everything.
Right.
That's why.
Okay. I just want to have that in my mind.
Just in the last, in the 2019 bond, there was $1 million a year actually from the bond itself, and then in our capital maintenance fund, we identified an additional $4 million. So technology was funded $5 million a year, spread out over the 4-year plan.
Is that on top of the?
No, that's where he got the funding.
That's where the money came from.
Money came from.
Just so
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
clear.
And so do these numbers, so are these numbers tied also to the new campuses that are part of the bond package, or these are just like existing footprint type expenses?
Existing infrastructure that's aging. Sorry. Existing infrastructure that's aging out that we need to replace in order to keep
Okay.
it functioning. New campuses get everything brand new.
Yeah, okay.
But they eventually roll into
So-
this
Yes.
overall.
Yeah.
Where do these show up? If we think about like the bond and Prop A, like,
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
That's coming.
It's worthy of it's worthy of note too that technology was cut in the 2019 bond.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to swim to reach the top of the water ever since. But we'll talk more down the road with the bond planning committee about individual devices. But just as a point of emphasis, this is just infrastructure and technology. Thank you.
All right, well, there's a really quick trip down meeting 5 and 6, and now I think Dr. Knoll gets to share with you kind of about some of the fun activities.
So, following all that, and we really, we pounded so much information into them over all these months, and then finally we reached this point where we were able to turn them loose and allow them to start building packages on their own, and they were amazing. Like, they really, like, to listen to them talk, they understood it, they had conversations. So what we gave them was a worksheet, and that's what I passed out to you. for them to work off of. And the point that we made very strongly to them is like, they're not being asked to approve like everything in column option 1 or everything option 2, option 3. This is a menu, and they are welcome to go off the menu. So they can move lower numbers, higher numbers on any of these that they wanted to. There are a few places that you see that we had asterisks that really indicated places where they could say 0. Like that could be as, you don't want to do any additions, that's fine. You could have no gyms, you could have no playgrounds, those could be 0s. So there are places there that they could do that. In the first meeting, they worked as a group, and they did a little bit of work, very quickly. Then they had a week away that they got to work on some individual plans, and then they came back the second week and they worked again to build plans as a table, and then they presented their plans. Not every table presented, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 presented theirs, and we began to see where there was some commonality, and at the end of that process we were able to do some voting and begin to get some structures built about what we were seeing in commonality. Well, now they have defined within themselves as consensus at 66%. So anything that will show up in their future bond package that they will bring to you will have been supported by at least 66% of that committee, or it would not be included in the package.
Seems like a pretty high number.
Yeah, they felt, but I think it's a good number. You think about 50% of the voters would need to support something, and this group obviously is the most educated group about the process. So I thought I think it was a fair number, and it's working. I mean, we're seeing where we were hitting, as we talk to them, we're seeing where we're hitting some caps and working through it. So I think it's.
You still feeling like the group as a whole is really feeling comfortable enough to get their points across, good or bad? Or
yeah, I think everybody has, and everybody's been able to vote. We show the votes real time. We show the results real time.
What's the average attendance been?
Probably.
I would say about 100, 110.
Yeah.
Roughly half?
We
No.
have,
2/3.
and we've had some members who never were able to show up, and so our voting member count right now is 148, and so.
We removed 6 that it never showed, so they were removed. So they're no longer on the committee. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's sort of unrelated, but not really.
Okay.
Regarding the playgrounds,
Yes.
have we ever put those in grants, like Healthy Children grants, or I've even heard of like Mud District picking up playgrounds?
Yeah, we've had a variety of way of funding playgrounds in the past. The number one way they've been funded is through PTOs. Sometimes we are able to get some grants that can help us in some ways, but
I've heard there's a place even here in Conroe, like locally, that's doing playgrounds, like doing grant funding and stuff for playgrounds.
I'm not familiar with that one. We would be all for it. I mean, we would chase any of that we can get, absolutely. No question.
Dr. Knoll?
Yes.
What's a little bit problematic on the playgrounds is that the PTO has been good about helping in supplying structures in the past. And Easy's not here, but I will tell you that the price of playground structures has gone up astronomically, and it's just about more than PTOs can do. It's a lot of money. Playgrounds are really expensive, and I talked about it before, not to belabor it, but as we lose playground space, as we add portable buildings, it puts more stress on the grass and the surface that we have. So it's unrelated, but the playground structures are really expensive.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Well, if we can, we'll just kind of flip through this very briefly, and I'll add a few more points when we get to that. So the first page here is new schools, and so what you see is a rank order that we went through using past data, also just consideration of portables. Where do we have portables? Where could we add portables? Where are we so full that we couldn't? And this was the order of schools that we would ask them to consider. And so basically their exercise really was to start from the bottom of the list and work their way up to figure out where they would draw their line. And we've had a variety of different groups saying different things. One group said 6, many groups said 8, 9, 10, all those kind of came through. So we're working to finalize that number, but this is the new school portion, and you can see we will exceed $1 billion in the bond package just in new schools. Like that alone is going to be exceed a $1 billion number.
Why is this highlighted?
That was highlighted.
It's highlighted because we made a change from the first time we showed them this to the second time. It would increase the capacity a little bit, which increased that number. So when we reprinted this, we wanted them to make note that that number had changed.
And this is exceeding 1 billion, even maybe up to 1.4 with one high school.
Correct. Yes. The second page is additions. Once again, this is an area where they could say 0, and you see we show options 1, 2, and 3 at the top. Those are just us building options. They have the ability to go in and build any custom package that they wish. And so we'll go through and keep talking about these. This is an area that I believe we'll keep circling back to as we get to a final number, as they're really trying to decide what to include and what not to include in their package. You'll notice, and there's 2 elementaries here, Haley and Ford, that show gym additions during their additions. That those could be left here, those could be pulled out and live in a separate category with all other gyms as well. So they have all of those options as they're considering it. Next page is major renovations. Same situation here. They can choose any combination of this that they wish. And once again, there's a couple here that you can see have gyms included. They could pull the gyms out basically and pull that number down by 5 million. And they can so they're working through these conversations as well. You can see certainly the Woodlands High School is the biggest school, so it's the biggest number. It's the largest square footage to be impacted. Master plans, as Mr. McCord mentioned, we have Oak Ridge High School, so you could do both phases right now at Oak Ridge High School, and then we also have Washington High School, which is a building that is really kind of aging out. This would be, as a master plan, would almost be building new structure at that site and decommissioning a lot of the current building because it is past its lifespan. But they are once again considering these options as well. Infrastructure, this is what Mr. McCord just spoke of. One of the points that we really made with the committee, and as you heard Mr. McCord say earlier, these items are not fun. Like, there's nothing exciting about this. The chillers and boilers and technology switches, they don't necessarily make you feel good, and they're not all that exciting to vote for. And so in the last bond, this is the kind of stuff that got pulled out. When the first one failed, this is like the stuff that got, and even building the first one, all of these things kept getting pulled out. So that's how, when you look at it and you go, how in the world are we at a point where 40% of our things are over age? That's how, because they got pulled out of the last bond committee. Because I don't think we did a good enough job of verbalizing to the bond committee about these items. So we really talked about these items, and we talked about the fact that these are items that if they're not functioning, the building doesn't function as a building. Like, if you don't have air conditioning, you can't have school in Texas. So they really understood that. I think they've taken that to heart. What you see here, $222 million, that fixes the things that you see here that need to be fixed. These additional options and then what they're considering is, if you're going to be at a school and you're going to be fixing the roof and you're going to be changing out all the HVAC, if it needs carpet and floor at the same time, should we do that work while we're there instead of putting it off? And so that's, if they put in additional money, that will be the type of thing that it would be for. But their baseline that they've already agreed upon is, we have to do this baseline work, or we have to do the stuff that needs to be done. Gyms, Once again, it's about $5 million per gym. You can see our chart here, and this is something that we see as very concerning, the fact that College Park and the Woodlands are very underrepresented in gyms. It's just the era of building that exists in most of that community. They have expressed a strong interest in doing something with gyms and with playgrounds, but they have decided to not include it in Prop A, but to include it in a separate prop so that it can stand alone and go to the voters standing alone, which I honestly applaud, and I'm hoping that they may go that way. So I was happy, just because I think we want to make sure that Prop A is meat and potatoes Prop A, and then if people choose this likely as a Prop C, then that would be their choice, right? So we don't know yet what number that they would want, but that's the thought process. The same with playgrounds. I think there is an interest in doing something. They did not, they wanted to do it as a separate item. We don't have a final number, but you can see here, about 250,000 at each campus would do a lot of some surface work. The more money that you put there, the more surface work you could do as far as making it accessible for children with disabilities, and then you could start to begin to add structures as well. And that's a sliding scale that they'll be picking a number as to what that number may be. Safety, once again, what we have told the committee is they could spend as much money here as they want. Like if they did 20 million, we'll spend 20 million and we'll get what we can. But truthfully, they could put 100 million here and we'd spend every penny, because there's enough stuff out there that you can do. So, and we had one of the committees, one of the groups that presented actually had 100 million in safety in their package. Most of them had closer to 25 to 35, but one of them did have 100. So that, that's something that we'll see where their final number, where that drop off is at the 66% support. But we do expect some state money to come in here, and that's part of what we've shared with them. We think money's coming from the state, and so, when they're making decisions, we know money is not coming from the state to build a school or to add on to a school or to buy us a chiller. But we do know state money is going to come for safety, so they're trying to balance that as well.
I bet there's some grants too.
Yes, yeah, there's going to be stuff, absolutely, that will come to support that, and so that'll be weighed in.
In Prop A.
Yes, all of this is in Prop A. Everything we're talking about, except for gyms and playgrounds that they're specifically moving, everything else is a Prop A conversation. Land, once again, we had 36 million that we've already committed into buying land, so they know that's kind of plus what's needed immediately for schools. So 50 is kind of their floor, and then they're looking, and we'll be deciding how far out in the future do they want to fund. So they'll give us a number there. Transportation.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Just on that. So you said 50 is a floor. 50 is a floor. So of that 50, is the 30?
36 is already spent, basically,
Okay.
in land that we were already purchasing or in the process of purchasing. So 36 is already committed. That's why kind of 50 is a floor, because it's really only 14 additional.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's a low floor, but it's a floor. Once again, they'll be voting somewhere as to in that range of what they want.
So Dr. Knoll, with the land that we've already committed to with that
Yes.
36 million, we don't have the money to build the schools on that, depending on how the school approval plays out.
Correct. Yeah.
Has that been explained?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, they know we can't build any schools unless the bond passes. Right. Absolutely. So, and they've heard me preach over and over again about the importance of what I call protecting Prop A. Prop A needs to be a very solid package that doesn't include things that people won't understand as a necessity. Like that group in the room can absolutely verbalize why a gym is important to an elementary, but the whole community may not be able to understand that. And that's why it probably needs to live in its own world, because everybody may not see it.
Dr.
Yes.
One last question.
Please.
The range of developed cost Can you explain what that is? It's not just the basic square, price per square foot. Is that like just clearing trees
So
and
that,
stuff?
that includes utilities, if I'm
Okay.
correct. So that, so
Okay. I'm like,
some
we
places.
can get it cheaper
Yeah,
than that.
yeah.
Come on.
No, some places we buy, like, have utilities there, some places
Got
don't,
it.
and then we either have to
Bring 'em
create
in.
our own or bring them in.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Transportation, so they're, as Mr. McCord mentioned, they're really looking at this in two different ways. The buses component and then the centers component. So, they'll be kind of picking numbers somewhere in there. And as we explain to them, if they come up with a number, let's say they say, well, it's $10 million for centers, that doesn't mean that we'll just automatically do Conroe transportation because it's 8.4. We would take that 10 and divide it amongst all three to try to do the best we could with that amount of money, the best we can. What you see there, Oak Ridge Transportation, just to note, the reason that's so expensive is because to build more concrete on that site, we'd have to go underground with the detention, and that's really expensive to do. So, but it's probably still cheaper than like opening an additional transportation center somewhere. So that's the balance. We can go past that one. Technology infrastructure. This is another one of those pieces. Yes, I'm sorry.
I do have a question,
Please.
because we've talked about it with building
Yes.
structures. Are there any, facilities in that immediate area that could be purchased that would serve, or that have been established?
Yeah, not that I have seen. I think office space, I do think is something that eventually maybe we can get a deal on somewhere. Like an office building.
Or like a transportation hub?
Yeah,
or
most of the industrial type facilities in our community, and at least what like Woodlands EDP and Conroe EDP tell me, like those facilities are kind of booming. They're not really available, but office space I think we're seeing more and more become available. But we would be open if we could find things that would work. Absolutely, we'd be open to it. Unfortunately for some of these places, like we've looked at shopping centers.
I was just
before,
gonna say that.
and it turns into being more expensive. Because they want to charge. You're going to pay for the building,
On the structure,
but then
right.
it's going to cost us so much to
Demo
it and build it the way we would need it that it ends up being more expensive. But
I'm just thinking.
but parking lot's parking lot. I mean, if we could buy,
Yeah.
if we could get industrial things, then that would be, I think, worth looking at. Absolutely.
Dr. Noel?
Uh-huh.
It just has to be able to be secured.
That's
Each
the
of those
key.
each of those buses have 2 catalytic converters on them. They are high theft items.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking along the lines of
Yeah,
something
exactly.
existing would have that infrastructure already.
Or that could be put in at a decent rate.
You're right. No, we're certainly be open to anything we could find out there. Technology infrastructure, this is that last piece that Mr. McCord shared. This is the same as that other infrastructure conversation. This is not exciting. But we've really tried to explain to them this time that like cutting all this last time from the bond is what put us in a bad spot. And we really sort of came back and said, 70 is really what's needed, and to go to 35 would be doing the same thing we did last time. I think there was we didn't vote on it, but there was a strong consensus in the room that 70 is, we need to do the things that need to be done there. So we'll be wrapping that one up, moving on. So that all of those things we just talked about, besides gyms and playgrounds being pulled out, we're all talking about a Prop A things. Additional props that could be considered. Prop B would be technology devices. They're going to learn about that after Easter and hear about those things. We know we have to do online testing and all the things that come with that. Devices, by law, have to stand in their own proposition. So, well, why are they not in A? They have to be in their own prop. So they stand alone. Potentially Prop C, if they choose to move forward as it appears that they are, could be gyms and playgrounds for elementaries. Then Prop D, if they choose to, could be career and technical education programs. So that could be a variety of things that they will have to consider. It could be, welding labs or different programs like that. Could be improvements to our current ag facilities, could be an additional ag facility in Conroe where we don't have one. Those would all be under career and technical education. That line stands alone as its own prop as well. And then finally, E, athletics, has to stand alone on its own. That could be a variety. It could be improvements to any of our athletic facilities. Our current natatorium is mechanically due for renovation. That could be included there. Also, what could be included there would be the potential of adding more pool space, because we are out of water as far as like room for people to practice. So that could be included in an athletics piece too, of additional, an outdoor pool or something like that as an additional practice. But so where we're tracking is a potential 5 proposition. If they chose all those, they could not choose a category. We will come back, as you see here, really by May 11th, they should have a pretty good feel and hopefully begin to really kind of finalize their draft package. And from there, we can start to share it with you all specifically. Get your feedback. We'll be getting feedback from the public all summer long. We'll go back to them in July and share that feedback and see if they want to make any additional changes, and they would bring to you their final package in August, either at the first week of August or that third week of August. They would bring you the final package, and then you all would, be able to make your final decision on that. You have flexibility in whatever they bring you, and the conversation time will be powerful, right? So let's just say, for example, let's say they come in and they've included I don't know. Let's say they've come in and they've included an addition at McCullough, but they didn't include any other additions, and you all feel like, like we really need to do the Ford addition. You could say that needs to be added, and then we would go back to the committee and say, the board has told us they feel very strongly that you need to reconsider Ford, or you need to reconsider the board has expressed a preference that they would like to see Oak Ridge High School completed in this bond package, not stretched out over 2 more. So we would invite y'all to consider that, and if that would, or they come back with $100 million for safety, and you all say, you know what, we think the state's going to give some money. We think there's going to be more grants out there. We think 100 is more than we need. We would prefer that they drop to 50. Like, those are all feedback items I could give them and ask them to adjust moving forward. Because in the end, they're working really hard, and they're putting a ton of time in, but they are going to make a recommendation to the 7 of you. You will be the 7 decision makers in the process, and they understand that. They understand that's their role to make that presentation to you. So
I have two questions.
Okay.
One, you were saying that they are leaning towards pulling out the
Yes.
playgrounds and the gyms.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is not probably favorable, but is it possible to split those
It could
from
be.
gyms and playgrounds when it comes to, well, you just told us that. Never
You
mind, that
can.
answered my question.
And I think this is where we'd all have to kind of think about it, is I think there is a point of diminishing returns
Yes.
on the number
Yes.
of props.
Absolutely.
So 5's probably a lot, 6 might be a whole lot, but let's say they decide they don't want to do anything with CTE or athletics, so those 2 props go away.
Right.
It would.
Now, that would be my second,
Yeah.
I could see where I'm concerned that if we throw playgrounds in with, say, gyms, it's already a hard enough sell to get
Right.
people interested in $5 million per gym.
Right.
When they go, you already have a space, but we
Right.
recognize and understand the scheduling impacts as
Sure.
we've discussed on that.
Mm-hmm.
As an educator, I really understand how that affects my classroom time and so on and so forth, because I could have my ELA block split 3 ways because of trying to get the specials, and by the time you have the start and stop, you've lost so much of your, so I understand it in a different manner.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm just concerned if we throw in playgrounds that they're going to go, that's just frivolous,
Yeah,
or whatever. It's hard
absolutely.
enough to get them to see the value of the gym.
Right.
That's number 1.
Fair
Number
enough.
2, as we continue to grow high schools or build high schools, we are already stretched to the max on a one pool natatorium space. People are going to have a very difficult time, regardless of the number of state divers and swimmers that we have, champions we have, scholarship awards that we get in that field. They're really going to have a hard time digesting a natatorium to the extent of what we have, as well as the repairs that are going to be needed there. I think I'm concerned that we need to be very seriously considering a pool in the high school area of our new high school, because, and it doesn't need to be to the same level of a natatorium. I mean, it needs to be a basic practice area that we can. I hate that we're busing kids from all over. That's an expense, that's a time eater on our students going to and from, etc. I think we need to very seriously consider that as an option, a pool in that whatever new
I think that's
school goes
we've
in.
had such discussion, and certainly we could ask Easy to get us, you know, so most districts do that, right? So Humboldt, they have a
Katy.
practice pool. Katy, Cy-Fair, they have practice pools at their high schools.
That's one of the reasons why their schools cost more,
Indeed.
is because they have a high school, I mean, they have a pool at the high school. Klein
So-
has one at their high school.
Yes, so we could
So-
put one at the new high school that we're building, and then Conroe, that school, and Caney Creek could practice there,
Right.
which would free up space.
Conroe, the new high
and
school,
Caney
and
Creek.
Caney
So
Creek.
we'd have 3 there, 3 at the Nat.
Yes.
So I can ask Easy to look at what the current number is on the cost of this school to see what it would cost to include a pool.
I
in that.
feel, I don't know the logistics of it. I don't know if that would have to be a separate part on the prop under athletics, or is that
I
part
don't
of the
think it would
building
be,
at the high
because
school?
it's just like the gym at the school, you know, you can build
If we
facilities
could
that are
get that
instructional.
figured into it, I think it's almost as critical as
Yeah,
space.
fair enough.
I mean, that's just my thought.
I'm-
I just wanted to
We've
throw it
had
out.
those conversations internally too. We try to always, you know, wait for your guidance to tell us where to go.
I mean,
on
I
that,
can't
but
speak for
Well, no,
anyone
but I
else.
think
That
it's-
is just a thought that I'm looking at. so.
We have felt the same way, because I agree with you that I think, especially if you look at how bond referendums have gone in this state, A's pass pretty well, B's pass pretty well, and then once you hit C, it's a
Yeah, they're like, no
steady,
more.
it's a steady decrease, right? So the further down, and I would always probably argue athletics should be last. It probably, in a pool, while we all can see the impact, when you think of the scope of the entire giant community, there's not that many people that are going to be that passionate about it. So it's not a standing alone. I agree that it is very vulnerable.
Yes.
Very vulnerable.
But as a district, it's
We need it.
very valuable.
Because we are reaching
yes.
a point where we are going to potentially have to start removing programs. You know, like, not
And
every.
UIL just
not-
added water polo, didn't
They
it?
did, and not every school district in the state, even those that have pools at all their schools, picked up water polo. We did, because we just like having our kids have a chance to do it, and it's exploded. But that's part of our problem now, why we don't have pool space. So we are reaching a point that we're going to have to start, or we have to eliminate water polo, or we're going to start, you know, reducing the number of kids that can be in these programs just because the number of spaces. So I think it's very valid. But no, we wouldn't have to build anything like what we
I know,
have.
and
It
that's
is
what
purely like
a box with a
just
pool and equipment.
Practice type facility.
Yeah,
Indeed.
if you can get us a number there.
Yeah, we'll get it. I'll ask Easy to check on it.
I think
for
if
us.
it's gonna make or break Prop A, it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's my only concern.
Yes.
Would be to put that in there. Does that become the target
Yeah.
on
Right.
Prop A, and now Prop A becomes
Exactly.
vulnerable? And like I said,
And we don't want it to-
I have
But-
preached to this committee over and over again about Prop A has to be protected. Like, at all costs, Prop A has, because it's the sink.
So then it would become, if we don't put it in, then we seriously have to know where we're gonna cut.
Correct.
And I mean, as far
Real.
as pool,
Yeah, for
as
real.
far as pool options.
Real conversation.
Yeah.
And we'd have to, what would not be optional is the refurbishment work at our current natatorium, right? Like, it has to continue to
Oh, yeah,
function.
or else
Like,
it doesn't
So the
work.
new equipment we'd have to find a way to fund that out of operating funds, because that has to happen. We'd never be able to build a pool, an outdoor pool out of cash. It's too expensive. We'll never be able to do that, but we would have to find a way to keep the current pool running.
I'm assuming we're renting the natatorium
yes.
for events
Oh,
and
yes,
things.
absolutely.
And, I don't know what that goes for, anything towards
It goes
the
back
maintenance?
in, and it generates a significant amount of money, but it does not pay for itself. It's, it is an expensive facility to run. Darren, that's an accurate statement, correct? Like, the natatorium generates a good amount of money in rentals, but it absolutely does not pay for itself. And it's,
Well, I don't think it should. I don't
No, it
think
doesn't.
we should
No.
be in the
No.
business of.
But
It's not meant to be a business thing.
But it does help,
Exactly.
right? It does generate some money, and that does help. So that's better than generating no money.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Absolutely. No, great. Any other questions that I can answer for y'all tonight? Well, we certainly appreciate y'all being here. I think I passed the sign-in sheet down. They make it all the way? Perfect. So,
Very informative. Thank you. Great information.
yes, okay. So, everybody good? Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. This will adjourn our meeting, and we'll see you. We'll wish you a happy Easter. Right?